Talking max strength conversation. Nightlife on Talk.
Yeah. Hi there, yeah. You can't see me yet, but it is me, it's Ash and Andre. And yeah, he's made it, but it's just me at the moment. And tonight, we're talking about the migrants, £6 million a day. We're talking about Gregg Wallace. We're talking about doctors going on strike for 5 days. Trigger warnings for young viewers offended by classic comedies. Any of these, give us a ring, 03444 99 1000. And the guest tonight, fantastic. We've got Alex Dyke, former BBC presenter, and we've got John Mappin, who's the owner of the Camelot Castle Hotel. I can't hear anything at the moment, guys, in me ears, so if you can sort that out. Anyway, Alex, what's going on, man?
Well, there's a lot going on. It's a busy menu there, Ash, and a lot going on.
A lot more as well,
this evening. And I've got an idea of how we can stop what they call the small boats that aren't really that small if you've got 70 people on them.
Yeah,
I mean,
which are 40 grand each a year. So let's do the math: 400 grand, 2.4 million on. Isn't that on one boat a year?
Something crazy like that.
So that's just one boat, and we get sometimes 1,000 a day. Let's do the math again, 40 grand each. That's 40 million pounds a year just on one day's worth of boats. I mean, that's billions and billions, and we find out today it's 6 million a day. You can bet that's a bit conservative as well, because they'll be trying to cover up everything. Right?
Sure. Well, I'm gonna go with you on the maths because I'm no mathematician, but I've been watching this on Talk all day and all week with Macron over from France, and I'm really worried. I think that if we don't, I was going to say nip this in the bud, but we've hardly nipped it in the bud.
Well, it's flowered now. The bud's gone and it's flowering. It's mushroomed, man. It's snowballed, and is it too late? I mean, that's my view on the Tories. I think they've damaged the country permanently with the Boris wave, and I think that should damage them permanentely.
Well, I think it probably has.
Yeah, well, I think they deserve it. Once you permanently damage the country. But can I talk about, you have a sort of tent camping site, sort of a glamping?
I have a glamping site.
Now,
on the
because
Isle of Wight,
you know how to sort of run a tent, they could be glamping, these migrants, or take some of the luxuries away. But that's what France do. And as Macron and all the others say, well, if you're going to offer them luxuries, they'd be mad not to come here rather than live in France in a tent.
Well, I was trying to look forward in my own way as to where this is all going to end. Yeah. And I think that if Starmer does not grab this and do something radical, because I think Macron coming over this week has been a bit of a waste of time, a £5 million waste of time. I thought, where's it all going to end? And what I'm worried about is that people are going to go to those beaches in the UK where those boats are coming in, your carpenters, your bricklayers, your young working dads, and they are going to think, well, if the police aren't going to do anything about this, we're going to take the law into our own hands, right? Yeah. Now, although I wouldn't encourage that, I do think that maybe the fallout from that would be that then the police and the army would turn up because they wouldn't like people like you and I going down there and saying, go back, go back. I think that's where it could all end.
I mean, it did happen, didn't there? There was a problem at a detention centre and they went... I mean, they will start putting people... Well, they've already put people in prison, but he's not going to do anything radical, is he? He already said smash the gangs. We knew that was a load of bunkum from the very start. And now this new system is ridiculous because apparently the one that gets sent in from France can bring in 25 of his not even immediate family, the uncles, the cousins.
The new one in, one out.
Yeah, it's one in and about one out and about 13 to 20 in. I mean, why aren't they sorting it? Do you think there's nefarious reasons? Do you think they're expecting civil disobedience, so it's good to have two different sides so the government can sort of basically divide and rule? Is that why they're bringing in military-aged men who hate us?
Listen, if we could...
Thousands of them.
Yeah, because I saw a boat coming over today on the television. It was all young men of a fighting age, about 70 of them, all in one boat. No women and no children, and this is serious. And the book hasn't been written on this. We don't know where this is going to end. But we
know terrorists have got in through that system.
Sure. Well, we don't know who's coming in, do we? Because passports are being ripped up and tossed in the sea on the way over, and papers. We don't know whether there's murderers and rapists and...
Well, we know that there will be.
In.
By just odds game, isn't there?
Yeah.
Just by the thousands.
So here's my idea. Now, you may think this is a bit crazy, but I just want to run it by you and the people listening and watching this evening, right? So we saw the French authorities slashing a boat earlier this week. We kind of think it was probably a press stunt because the BBC just happened to have a camera crew there at the time. But what about if our authorities, once the migrants come over and they're getting out of the boats, okay, so they're over anyway, why don't we slash those boats there, everyone that comes over,
and arrest the driver.
Arrest the driver, take them into custody, take the pilot or the captain.
Put them in a tent city, not a four-star hotel, and don't give them any benefits.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Give them the minimum,
exactly.
like France are doing.
But we hold the crew, or the guy who's piloting or captaining it, but we smash or slash every single boat that comes over, so they can't return with those boats.
It's still small fry in the amount of money they're getting for each load. But anyway, look, we've got John Mappin, who's from the Camelot Castle Hotel, and he's from the Mappin and Webb family. He was a great guy. He turned down a multi-million-pound offer from the government to take over his hotel, which would entail him having to fire his own staff. And hi, John, are you there?
Hello, how are you, Ash?
I'm
nice
all right. Is that a backdrop of the Camelot? Oh, you're in Norway, I hear. You're fishing.
I'm in Norway. I'm in Norway. You've caught me salmon fishing. Of course, we're in the land of the midnight sun.
Wow, is that the land of the midnight sun? I thought that. All right, okay. So anyway. Look, how much did the government offer you for your hotel? And they offer you to refurb it and pay for it all to get done up after.
I've never said the exact figure, but it was full occupancy for a year.
So millions of pounds.
On a rolling contract.
Yeah. And
it would definitely have been a very, very generous offer.
Do they pay over the odds of what the public would pay for the rooms as well?
No, I don't think they would have paid over the odds for what the public would have paid. But certainly what they would have done is any damages they would have repaired. And the other thing that they would have done is required that we let go our local staff.
Yeah, I know.
And the tragedy of that is, you've got people that have been working for you for 20 years in some cases. And what are they supposed to do?
I mean, but you must understand, obviously, as hoteliers who are on their bottoms, because after COVID, their skin, basically, they've been ruined, and this is a lifeline. Some have become billionaires and been a bit greedy. But what do you think of them? And also, apparently, you've got a bit of an answer to these small boats problem.
Well, personally, I would use the Navy to turn them around. I think that's, we are dealing here with an invasion, and I would use the armed forces to basically protect the nation. Obviously, I'm not a politician. I'm just a member of the general public. But I do think the general public feels that we are being invaded. I think we need to call it correctly by what it is. This is an illegal invasion. On the whole, these are mainly men that are coming in.
Who don't like us, by the way, a lot of them. They don't want to do us any good. They want to take over some of them.
Well, you're not wrong. Some of course, absolutely love us, especially if they get put up in sort of 4-star, 3-star accommodation.
Yeah, but that actually is not... that's what our thought is, but actually they hate us even more. Different cultures will see being kind as weakness, and they'll look at us as scumbags for giving them stuff. And that's what people have got to get their head round, other cultures. It's also like not believing you'd rather have your kids die and be martyred, you know what I mean? We've got to get our head around how they think, rather than thinking, oh, if we're nice to them, they'll be nice to us. No, it's the opposite. They hate us. Anyway, I've got Alex Dyke here, who's a former BBC presenter. Have you got any answers?
Well,
yeah, what do you think, Alex?
Yeah, man.
Well, I've got a couple of questions for you, John, if that's okay. Were they, with this deal that they were offering you, the government were offering you, was it full occupancy for your hotel 365 days a year?
Yeah, of course, because, migrants aren't taking a holiday. They're well, I suppose they're on some sort of permanent holiday, really, but they are yes, it would be a permanent residency. And as I say, when would this end? We've been told that these migrant hotels are coming to an end, But can we really believe that?
I went to one in Belsize Park, right? Can you believe it? Because they say it's not in posh areas. It is, believe me. And because I sort of look a bit, they let me in. I just went in there. And then once they realised, they went, oh, what you do? And I noticed that a lot of the staff were also seemed like they hadn't been in the country long. Do you know anything about that anecdotally?
Well,
it's not being run by British people. Well, it doesn't seem to be, the actual security and people like that.
There's a very interesting YouTube channel called Truth 101, and the fellow goes around and he films these migrant hotels.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
But it is just disgraceful, really, what is going on. And I think, can I commend you for highlighting this? I mean, I've had letter after letter after letter. This is an issue that the general public feels so strongly about. And why should we be handing out? It's not the government money, after all. It's your money.
It's our money, and we're on our uppers as well.
People's money. But I don't know what we can do about it. I mean, I think that we really need to...
We'll do what France is doing. Say when you get here, you don't get any benefits. You just get the tent, and then after a week or two, they'll realise they're wasting the... It's only apparently 1,500 quid now, but that would solve it. Just say you're only going to get what you get in France. France don't have to follow any ECHR, obviously.
No. Well, you're not wrong, and I think the French are probably doing a better job of it than we are. I think Viktor Orban is doing a marvellous job.
John?
I think President Trump, funnily enough, is doing a good job.
Well, he's got to cut it by 99%, his problem. Sorry, Alex.
John, it's Alex here. I've got another question for you. I mean, it's very gallant of you to tell the government where to go on this, but there will be other hoteliers out there who, as Ash says, are on their uppers, and they may not have as much money as you to be able to ride out the storm. And if they say yes, then everything you've done, in a way, has been kind of wasted, hasn't it? And I don't mean that in a negative way, although it sounds very negative. I think it's brilliant what you've done. You've made a stand, but not everyone's going to be as decent and as honest and as British as you.
But where do we start? You know, if all it takes is one person to stand up and say, well, actually, this is unfair to the British people. And I don't think I'm particularly unique. I'm quite humbled by the response. What I would say is that 99% of British people would have done exactly the same thing, because they understand that what they would be participating in is cultural destruction. And that is what we are witnessing in front of our very eyes. I mean, I don't know if you saw last night in Knightsbridge, which is supposedly an affluent area, someone was stabbed for their Rolex.
They were killed, weren't they? Yeah, murdered, yeah.
They were killed.
Yeah.
So we are importing cultures that have a very different view of life. I mean, I was quite ashamed when I came over here, because I arrived at Norway Airport and it was absolutely immaculate. I'd left Bristol Airport, and I have to tell you, it's filthy, absolutely filthy. And we are importing these standards, if you like. And Britain, if you really take a look at it, I mean, can you remember what Britain was like 15, 20 years ago?
It was lovely, yeah. And the trouble as well is it's coinciding with the police not doing their job. So people, like probably what happened in Knightsbridge, we don't know, but generally someone will stick up for themselves. They'll pull a knife out because there's no police around. So it's multiplying in other areas because of this. It's like the broken windows policy. There's shoplifting. There's loads of people who we can't identify here, and then you've got people who will stab people for their watches. So it's actually multiplying and getting a lot more dangerous. Women can't go out at night alone anymore because they're taking their lives in their hands.
Well, I don't know if you saw, but I think it was Rupert Lowe that suggested that the migrants get put onto an island in Scotland where the midges would have a go at them. And I don't know if you can see on the camera, I am actually being completely eaten alive by midges at the moment. Oh. And I can tell you that if Rupert's plan was to go ahead, I think the illegal migrants will be with us for about 5 minutes.
Can you not get any sort of mosquito repellent or whatever, midgie?
Trust me, I put a double dose on, but it is a particularly midgy evening here in Norway, and just to say kudos to Rupert, because I think his midge strategy standing here right now, I think that would probably work very well.
But the thing is, when they do move them out the hotels, they're just going to move them into people's landlords, who you can't blame them as well, or on their uppers can get a lot more rent, and they'll pay the full service charge.
Well, that's true.
That's where it's going after this, isn't it? They're already setting that up.
I think you're right. There are people that are going to take it, and let's face it. If you really look at how COVID came about and why that was all done, it's almost as if it was planned to have a situation where hoteliers were suffering, where you could persuade a lot of them to take that money, because I don't think any hotelier out of choice would wish to, take that government money. Yeah. I think there have been a couple actually that profited out of it.
So there's some billionaires now. I know the Britannia Hotel Group did very well out of it because they didn't have a very good reputation. Now they're worth a fortune. But just before you go, because we've got to go to break, how did Donald Trump win you £100,000? This is the story I've heard.
Well, I will tell you, but I studied something called Scientology.
Oh, yeah.
And within Scientology, there are some mathematical axioms. You can Google it. They're called Scientology axioms.
Yeah.
And when he came down the escalator, I applied those Scientology axioms to the information that was coming out of America. And I was able to work out that he would win within 48 hours of him coming down the escalator. So I took the entire book at William Hill at 33-1.
So what, this was a couple of days before he won, was it?
No, it was the day he came down the escalator when he announced in June 2000.
You got 33-1. I mean, that's good odds, because I thought he was going to win. You know, I knew he was going to come back, and I thought when he does,
well,
he'll
on
win.
election night it was 5-1.
I wish I'd have known it was 33-1. That was ridiculous.
We wish we'd known you then, John. That's what Ash is saying.
Well, keep in touch. Keep in touch.
Yeah,
obviously, with gaming, there's no guarantee. I'm not recommending.
It's a mugs game. We offer Ofcom reasons. Don't gamble, and when the fun stops, try and get more money and win the fun. No, don't get more money when the fun stops.
Yeah, exactly. No, but if I could just say, the only reason I put the bet on was because I made a statement. I said, "Listen, this guy is going to win." Sorry, I think I just swallowed a midge. I think this guy is going to win. And I just wanted to have a little marker on that. I have a little marker.
What about Farage? Will he win?
Well, unfortunately, the odds have come in a bit. So
have you used the Scientology equation on Farage?
I think Farage is scigeneristic. You know, he has a taste unto himself. It's like a pineapple. You know, like a pineapple.
Well, just say pineapple.
Flavor.
I know what pineapple is. Yeah.
Yeah, but a pineapple has a scigeneristic taste, which basically it means it has a taste unto itself. In other words, it's nothing else other than a pineapple. Yeah. And Farage has got this unique leadership quality, and I just think he is the man of the moment. So if I had to put a bet on, I haven't put a bet on, but if I had to put a bet on, I would certainly, have a go at the Farage position.
You wouldn't get 33-1 there, would you?
You wouldn't get 33-1. No, I don't. What are the odds now?
Probably not. Well, he's the favourite, isn't he, now, they say. Anyway, look, John.
Odds on.
No, I mean, you might win because, as you say, he's the political pineapple. That's Nigel Farage, he's saying. That's John Mappin there, Camelot Castle Hotel hero, who turned down the government for multi-million pounds. I'll be back with Alex Dyke and Andre Walker. I think we'll show his face back in a couple of minutes.
OK, well, you just heard us crash the end of the break, and the very simple reason is this. This is The Late Show with Andre Walker, Asher Gould and Alex Dyke, and we are having a conversation about Gregg Wallace, and we just can't decide in the studio what we think of it. So why don't I start off, and then we can go around the room. Really, really simple. So obviously, the BBC once again has spectacularly failed to deal with allegations of wrongdoing. Why did it get to 50 allegations? Now, the fact that they've not taken any action until there were 50 allegations is in of itself a failing on their part, whether he is guilty, whether Wallace is guilty or not. That is a failing, because when one allegation comes in, they should have investigated it. However, I will go on the other side of this. I do worry that things like harassment laws are potentially criminalising people who are autistic. I've got a friend of mine who met a girl at university, bombarded her with hundreds of text messages and calls for no other reason than he was autistic. There was nothing dodgy about them, nothing sexual about them, nothing. And obviously when she wasn't replying, he became more and more excitable. And in the end, he pleaded guilty to harassment. But those anti-stalking laws were not brought in for that. Now, I also, and the gallery don't want me to do this because obviously he's been found not guilty, but if you remember, you know, a lot of what they were saying about Neil Fox, Dr. Fox, was inappropriate laddish behaviour, you know, making crude jokes and all this sort of thing. They weren't accusing him principally of you know, jumping out of a bush like you see on Crime Watch. And I just worry whether there is a lot of snowflakiness to all this.
A lot of reverse snobbery, because I think he was right that he was working class. You know, if it was a woman, middle class, making some smutty remarks, nothing would happen to her.
I mean, just
he's
remember...
working class. Oh, look how vulgar he is.
The ruling in the Neil Fox case was that the judge said, I believe what the women are saying, but it's unclear that it's a criminal offence to just make some off-colour remarks. Now...
And he wasn't a doctor.
So I get... Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Well, neither's
the real crime,
I mean, that annoys me, because my name's Andre. Dr. Dre has fewer academic qualifications than me.
Wasn't he a real doctor?
No, he's Andre Young. Just crazy.
Right.
Anyway, Alex, before we get into Gregg Wallace, I want to tell the best story ever about you. Right, it's really, really simple.
He found something. I found out, apparently, while he's been away up north, he's found something out about you. Are we going to reveal it exclusively now?
It's nothing dodgy.
It's apparently 50 allegations.
It's not dodgy, but it's something. It's something we've all done as a contributor. I was sat there whilst Kevin O'Sullivan was having the conversation with Samara Gill, his producer, and he went, no, we can't have this bloke on. We can't have Alex Dyke on. And she went, why not? And he goes, because he's commenting about Glastonbury and he hasn't been. And she went, but he's been to similar concerts in the past. And he went, I'm not bringing him on as an expert on Glastonbury unless he's actually been to Glastonbury. Alex, I salute you, because I will tell you, I've had a stab at multiple things that I've never been to, but nothing will defeat this tale about our friend Patrick Christie's from the other place. He said that he once got phoned up by Sky News and they said to him, Patrick, would you be willing to comment? We need an anti-European on the Kay Burley show. So he said, yeah, no problem, I can do that. And when he arrived, Kay Burley, so he just thought it was a generic debate about the European Union and he needed the money before he became quite famous. And he said, here's what happened. He came in and Kay Burley introduces the segment like this. She goes, for the first time in history, the city of Bayeux is offering to loan the Bayeux Tapestry to Hastings. And then it went through the introduction, so it's very clear that not only was the museum in Bayeux up for this, the mayor of Bayeux was up for this, Hastings was up for it, the museum in Hastings was up for it, both governments, Britain and France, had agreed to it. And then she went, Professor Bob Jones is here in support of it, and Patrick Christie's is against. And he said, I think it became clear within about 5 minutes that I had no idea what I was talking about at all. He said he'd just been told he was there to say something anti-European, not to specifically oppose the loaning of the Bayeux
tapestry. Yeah.
In my defence, Your Honour, I was rung and asked if I would come on and talk about Glastonbury.
Okay.
Now, I have...
So what you thought was, you could say, I know nothing about Glastonbury, or you could say, screw it, I'll have a go.
Yeah, but the thing is, you can't blame them for thinking he would be an expert, because he worked for the BBC and everyone in the BBC.
Yeah, and I ran my own festival for, not as big as Glastonbury. It was for about 5,000 to 6,000
That doesn't make you an expert specifically on Glastonbury.
No, but I was going to be talking about the politics of Glastonbury.
Oh, okay.
And
Well, in that case, I'll tell you what we're going to do. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We are going to talk about Gregg Wallace, because you can't have Alex Dyke in the studio and not talk about the BBC, because that you are very much an expert. I'll tell you what we'll do. At 5 to 11, we'll let you talk about the politics of Glastonbury for 5 minutes. Right?
I don't want to know. It's gone.
No, it's not gone. It's not past. It's not past. But anyway, whilst I'm making jokes about contributors being up for debating anything, you genuinely do know the BBC. Now, I don't know Gregg Wallace. I don't know whether he's guilty or innocent. But 50 allegations before an investigation started. They've done it again, haven't they?
Well, the thing about the BBC is, I was thinking about this earlier this evening. ITV have had their fair share, and I'm sure there's stuff that's gone on at
the
other
Gino
channels as
D'Acampo
well.
thing's very similar, although they used to bring him on with just a sock on his willy and go all laugh at it, and then a couple of years later going, oh, do you remember he came in with a sock on it? And you know what I mean? They're having a go at stuff they set him up for.
Well, you think about how big the BBC is, how many television channels they've got, and how many radio stations they've got, all these different networks, and there are layers and layers and layers of people. And getting to the problem takes time.
Right, okay.
Now, if you think about Gregg Wallace, this MasterChef, a whole series is now going to be, I guess, put on a shelf and never shown. You think of all the money.
Sorry to interrupt you. That's right. Your money, my money, the viewers and listeners' money.
But because of all the different layers, no one gets to blame. And I remember I was at the Trick Awards because James Whale won the Lifetime Achievement Award, and this was a day before Hugh Edwards, you know, it all came out. And he was sitting on a table, he won an award, and all the management were with him, and they would have all known about what was happening the next day, and this was all in, but they were all having a laugh with him, and there's so many layers of management now, there's no one to actually blame, so they know they're going to get away with it. The only person gets done is the person, I mean, Jimmy Savile got away with it, but Hugh Edwards himself, but none of the management that knew this was going on, they just get away with it, don't they?
I know, but things are changing, and the world is changing so rapidly, and what was acceptable, we all know what was acceptable 10 years ago is not acceptable now, and it's all very well looking back. I think we're going to talk about classic comedy later, things that were shown 40, 50 years ago and frowning at them now and saying, well, I wouldn't want that on the TV now. Yes, the world has changed, society has changed, but as far as this is concerned, we've got on our show notes here, what does the BBC, why does the BBC have such a problem with bad behaviour? I don't know why. Maybe because they employ so many people.
Could it be that a lot? I mean, look, we have conversations, playful conversations about our colleagues. There are a fair few nutters in the media, aren't there? I mean, let's be honest. I mean, actually, I'm not even going to tell you any stories about some of the people I've come across. But there are people who just in normal. I mean, look. The irony is, he's the sane one. I'm not joking.
Whatever you do, don't say it.
I mean, if you are thinking Asher Gould and Andre Walker are comparatively normal, I mean, that is damning.
Did you ever hear anything at the BBC? You know, you were there for years. I mean, did you hear rumours about Jimmy Savile or any of the other?
Well, I heard... Right, OK, if you've got time for I can tell you a Savile story if you've got time.
Well, it depends whether we want to go to
a break
first.
Should we...
No, because then everyone will come back after the break.
Yeah.
Right, what we'll do is...
Salivating like Pavlov's dog.
Yeah, we'll do it like X Factor.
Don't go away.
The story about the BBC.
Jimmy Savile.
Okay, we didn't properly build that up because when I did the silence, they cut to the break. But I was going to go Alex Dyke's
So
story.
let's take another break at this point and keep them all over because you wouldn't believe what you're going to hit. No, we'll go into it.
Yeah, go to the break and do a Just Eat advert like ITV. But anyway, Alex, go on. Sorry,
Right.
just for those.
So you were going to say a Jimmy Savile story.
I can
that we
tell you
don't know
two things
that we
about
don't know
Jimmy
about.
Savile that you won't know.
Okay.
One is, now you've got to remember that I am a dyslexic disc jockey. So when I left school, I wouldn't...
Are you a JD?
I am.
Hey!
I wouldn't read much, but I wanted to be on Radio 1 when I was a teenager. I was just obsessive about
That's
it.
why everyone who wanted to be a DJ wanted to be on Radio 1.
You look. Did you ever go on Radio 1?
I got close. I did some auditions for Top of the Pops and some stuff like that. But
You
anyway,
look like you're on
Yeah,
it.
you do. Yeah. You
Actually,
look
that's
like one of
not
those
good.
dodgy. You look like one of those dodgy
he
Radio
doesn't.
1 DJs
He
from the
doesn't.
70s.
He doesn't. He looks like one of the Jamie Theakston types who turned out to be harmless. You know
That's
what I mean?
all right then. Yeah, and Noel Edmond, who's sort of harmless.
anyway, so in 1979,
Margaret Thatcher just came in.
my parents used to get in those days the Daily Express. I would read anything about Radio 1.
Are you from the
Noel
Midlands?
Edmonds. No, from the Isle of Wight. And there was a story in the summer of 1979 in all the papers that Jimmy Savile's brother had been charged with rape.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
Well, hardly anyone does remember it, so I remember reading this, and then on a Thursday night I would go to this disco called the Carousel, and I was only about 16, 17, and I would DJ, and then the Radio 1 DJs would come on. They'd have a different DJ every week.
That's how they used to make the big money, isn't it?
Thursday nights they would be on the Isle of Wight throughout the summer, right? So one night, I won't tell you who, but it doesn't matter because he's a really nice guy and it's just not worth putting his name in the mix. I said to him, what about Jimmy Savile's brother? So bear in mind, this is 1979. And he said to me, he said, I'll tell you one thing, he said, you will never read a bad word about Jimmy Savile while he is living.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
And that was 1979, right? Then,
because he had stuff on people, didn't he? And he had the police in his pocket.
And he was fairly violent, apparently.
Yeah, and he also said he knows the right people. That's what he said to me,
people,
right? So this is another Radio 1 DJ. It has nothing to do with Jimmy Savile, but was working in the building when he was. Fast forward to 1985, and I'm working at Radio Luxembourg in London in their Mayfair studios.
Yes.
And we're doing a series called Luxembourg Legends. So Radio Luxembourg is fading out.
It was
now.
a British station, by the way, but it came from Luxembourg.
Yeah, so its base was in Britain, but its studios were in Luxembourg, and it was the fading by the mid-80s.
Is it, just to be clear, was it like Atlantic 252 in the following way? Atlantic 252 was the radio waves that were given to the Irish Republic. Right, so the reason Atlantic 252 could broadcast in Britain was because the radio wave, medium wave, could be got in the United Kingdom. Was Radio Luxembourg actually the Luxembourg national station or something like that?
No, it's part of RTL, Radio Tele Luxembourg, so the German service, the French service, and the British service, and all of that. So in 1985, I'm working at Radio Luxembourg, and I'm producing a series that we came up with called Luxembourg Legends. So the idea was we got all of the big DJs that had once been there and get them in to do.
Who mainly went on to Radio 1.
Most of them went on to Radio 1, so we had Peter Powell and Tommy Vance and Johnny Walker, Tony Blackburn. And all of that. And it was a very successful series for us. So I went to the head of music, who had just come over from Radio 1 as a producer, and said, look, we really need to get Steve Wright. We need to get Alan Freeman. Alan Freeman was at Capital. Steve Wright was at Radio 1. He said, well, we might get Fluff. I don't think we'll get Steve Wright. I said, and Jimmy Savile. He said to me, over my dead body will Jimmy Savile ever be in this building? And I said, why? And he said, he's weird. He's strange, he's a pervert. And the rumour then was necrophilia.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah,
so this is 1985. So when people in the BBC say, we didn't know, as a dyslexic teenager on the Isle of Wight, I had heard about it in 1979 and again in 85.
Do you remember, he was never on Children in Need, and apparently the bosses...
was in 1988, he went on once, and then
they said he's never to come on again. So they obviously knew what was going on.
But here was a really interesting story the other way. One of his relatives... I think it might be the nephew that's publicly stood up and said the estate needs to compensate the victims first and I will issue my inheritance, and got all the family. It might be him, it might not, I can't remember. But he basically said that they'd come down from Leeds in the 70s as teenagers, and basically gone to King's Cross Station and gone, right, we're in London, what are we going to do? And basically a group of guys had gone, oh, why don't you come with us? And they got invited back to, you know, a house party, which was clearly very, very sketchy indeed, right? And they realised they'd been had and they were potentially going to be molested or whatever it was. And anyway, of course, can you imagine this? What this guy thinks? Jimmy Savile strides in and he goes, Uncle Jimmy. And Jimmy Savile looked round and went, I've come to rescue you. Right. So, of course, this bloke thinks, what a legend. And then he goes, it was only later I thought, well, how would he know we were there? And, of course, what's happened is Savile, presumably, has walked in, realised, oh, my God, one of the victims is my nephew. Let's take them out in order to just pretend to him that I was trying to be helpful. So, of course, this guy's gone through life going, oh, do you remember that sketchy time in King's Cross? Whereas actually, clearly, why would Savile know he was there? It was just...
But people used to get... Do you remember... I remember there were various publications and they used to sort of tongue-in-cheek go, oh, look at, you know, this Amanda de Cadenet, she's a it girl of 14, and so it was all sort of like, oh, rock stars are seeing this young, very underage girl, and it was sort of like, oh, naughty boy and all that. It wasn't seen as how horrendous it actually is.
But here's the bit that amazed me, right, and you know how you told that story about you knowing and you couldn't have known? I will tell you, I watched Jimmy Savile with Louis Theroux and I thought, oh my God, Louis Theroux thinks he's a pedo. Right, that's what I thought. I didn't know anything about Jimmy Savile.
I think he did think it, and then he backtracked when he went the second time. Said, I had no idea he was a pedo.
He later said that he was not trying to imply to the audience that he knew something about Jimmy Savile. I watched it just as an ordinary punter and thought, oh my God, he's ribbing him for being a dirty old man.
Yeah, but he had to say he didn't realise, because he stayed mates with him after, and he did a second show with him. And Dan Davis, who was a friend of mine before, and it was that BBC drama was about his life. He did the same as Louis Theroux. He stayed with him for a few days. He went on the QE2 with him, and I saw him. I was having a fag with him at the Talk Christmas party, and he said, you won't believe this, Jimmy Savile's a massive pedo. And he did the same thing as Louis Theroux. And so Louis Theroux, you know, he must have known, but he was a bit, he was very embarrassed. He carried on with it.
All I can say about Louis Theroux is that I believed that Jimmy Savile was a sex offender because I believed that Louis Theroux had implied it on the show. Now, Louis Theroux can turn around and subsequently say, I was not intending to imply it, but that's what I got.
But Louis Theroux, you're right about Louis Theroux. So Louis Theroux, when I watched the Louis Theroux thing, I thought, well, he's asked the question.
Yes, he has.
He's denied it on camera.
But in a weird way, wasn't it?
Yeah, but he was always weird. I mean, I spent the afternoon with Jimmy Savile in about 1988 doing an interview with him.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the mask never slipped.
No.
Halfway through the interview, the phone rang and he said, I've got to go out and get the phone. He had another guy with him. And he went out and got he came back and he said it was the Queen Mother for me. Now, whether it was or not, you would never know with Jimmy Savile. But he did hoodwink Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah, he did.
You know, all of the royal family.
He was put in charge of... I mean, I've seen some of the memos where they said about putting him in charge of Broadmoor, effectively. They said he wouldn't be in charge of operational, day-to-day stuff. And
they gave him the keys.
Basically, they said, even though this sounds ridiculous, this is a man that has a can-do attitude and can open doors and whatever.
Well, he raised millions of pounds, and Thatcher, you know, she thanked him for the spinal cord place. What was it called? And
yeah, Stoke Mandeville. He went down to Chequers for Christmas lunch with her.
He had the keys. He was a bit like, you know, if you look into the story of Rasputin, how he ingratiated himself to the royal family, which was Queen Victoria's grandson, Nicholas the Tsar, and the son had haemophilia, so he bled out, and then Rasputin came. He was like a priest, a bit like Savile was a priest of this and that. Both big guys, both quite tough. And, you know, very similar how he sort of, apparently Rasputin used to walk around the palace going, you know, treating them as equals, and the same, you see Savile doing that, going, hey, Phil, to Prince Philip and stuff like that. It was weird similarities.
But also the other thing...
And he was helping out with Prince Charles as well.
I think the other thing is when you're saying people covered up for it, it is for the police to investigate. And the police, I've seen documents, not confidential documents, I should say, where the police have gone, don't worry about this, Jimmy gets these allegations all the time. Right, and I can understand why somebody would say that. They go, oh, these girls are always... But it was their job to investigate. But if you're a member of the royal family, and what is effectively happening is this person is bringing in, say, £1 million a year for the Prince's Trust. He didn't do that. I'm making that up. But then you would be, and certainly... If this man has been exonerated of every crime or not been properly investigated, then you would give him a knighthood. But do you know something about Savile? there is a fair degree of evidence that he's the Yorkshire Ripper. And the Yorkshire Ripper is multiple people, including Peter. He knew Peter Sutcliffe before Peter Sutcliffe went to prison. Did you not know that?
I didn't know that.
Crazy.
But
he was investigated for being the
Right,
Yorkshire
we've
Ripper.
got a break. We better save the rest of that story for after this break to keep them listening. Stay tuned, back in 2 minutes.
Okay, well, look, we were talking a little bit about Gregg Wallace. I just want to, before we go on to the trigger warnings about the royal family and things like that, I just want to mention just Gregg Wallace very quickly. What is our view on the fact that he said he's autistic and this is part of the reason he's done all these bits and bobs?
I don't remember in Rain Man him not wearing pants.
Yes, okay.
Well, I don't know. I think that... thank you very much. I think that maybe he... I don't know.
Apparently you didn't like the labels, but cut the labels out then, wouldn't you? Rather than go commando.
You know, I think he's trying it on, and I think he deserves the boot. But
I just worry were in the same breath they have sexual abuse and sexual harassment. To be fair, sexual harassment is making off-colour remarks. Sexual abuse is touching someone
which is a bit snobbish, isn't it?
Very different.
If a middle-class woman said something to Wallace, he wouldn't complain, but it's sort of a bit.
I worry about when people have on the record.
Woman of a certain age, middle-class women of a certain age is what he said.
When they go, somebody's been accused of behaving sexually inappropriately, and what they've actually done is made a boobs joke that they shouldn't have. That I worry about.
Yeah.
That I worry about.
And I mean, this is different because it's not that historic, but a lot of the times we are judging people by something they may have said in 1987.
Which was allowed at the beat. Well, even 1990, even 2015, really. He was allowed to get away with stuff that now they're going, oh my God,
what about Admiral the Lord Nelson, who personally opposed the abolition of slavery? He stood up and he said, I think we should keep slavery going. But he was the person that fought the slave war that freed the Lomboko slave encampment, which you see in the film Amistad, right? The guy was a legend. Nobody had done more to eradicate slavery. But because he happened to say that he didn't agree with abolishing it, suddenly he wasn't a slave owner. But I just worry because we are passing down. Human progress is about passing down information from generation to generation. We know more than our parents did, or we should know more than our parents did, and they should know more than their parents.
But that's not happening, does it?
That doesn't mean people in the past are evil.
No, when Ash and I were kids, when you picked the baby up...
We weren't kids at the same time.
Yes, very close. When you picked the baby up from the maternity unit, you put them in the carry cot on the back seat of the car, all right?
Yes.
Everybody did.
No airbag.
You would never... No seatbelts. You would never do that now, so it's good that times change.
Yes. Yeah, but we would suffer people like this. They say playing in trees and falling out, and now that kids are just... But in my day, you'd climb a tree, you'd go down the shops, you'd go to the cinema, and you'd still have change for 5 ducats.
This is not my era, but I bet it's yours, Alex. Get us 20 ciggies from the shop. Mum, I'm 9.
I used to buy my dad a pack of senior service for his birthday and take the odd drag. But now, kids, they've actually traced this, the frontal lobes. People who were born in 1997, they went onto Facebook, and it's changing their brains because they're not going out playing with kids, and it does something to your socialisation process.
I'm sure it does, but aren't we now leading into this what you can and cannot say at the BBC thing?
Apparently is the trigger warning.
This is dovetailing nicely into...
I have to say to you, the royal family, which I thought was absolutely brilliant.
Not the royal family,
the royal
comedy.
family. One of the greatest episodes. For those who haven't watched, I'm sorry, I can't go through
By the way,
whole
we better issue a trigger warning. Anyone who's offended, don't.
But Jim Royal was obviously a guy on the council estate who'd fallen on his luck and got into a rut of eating and never going out and whatever. And of course, his son's father-in-law comes over, called Roger, and Roger's got a box at Man U, and Roger's got a box at Man City, and Roger's got a stress therapist in Hale who's actually a dominatrix prostitute, and Roger's got a boat, and Roger's got an Aston Martin, and Roger's got this, and Roger's got that, and whatever. And anyway, at the end of the episode, and this is the thing they've got trigger warning for, this is the thing. At the end of it, Jim Royal sits down and he goes, I've never had anything, and I never will have anything. I'm brassic, I'm penniless, and I always will be. And then they gave him his birthday present, and he opens it up, and he goes, you bought me Sky Television. 250 channels! Oh my God, Roger my arse! Right? And that they could have a trigger warning for. I thought it was a great moment of somebody who felt low at Christmas, but then had got what they actually wanted. Because in reality, he didn't want a box of Man U, he didn't want a box of Man City. He loved sitting watching the telly, and now he had 250 channels. Roger my arse has got a trigger warning.
Well, and that is fairly recent from the BBC. And then if you look at Little Britain, that's fairly recent from the BBC were making these programmes, and we all laughed like drains. And now we're
not a Little Britain though. It was a bit crap, wasn't it?
Well, there were some good bits in it, wasn't there? And what's the one they did after that at the airport?
Oh, that was brilliant.
Come fly with me.
Right, so you won't see they're off the iPlayer now. You won't see those.
Are they?
You won't see those.
But the
anymore.
funny thing was, I remember watching it at the time and going, because blacking up was already a bad thing, but and I think, how are they getting away? And they're getting away because they were from the left. Maybe they.
We
were
know
gay.
how they got away from it. What they did was they amplified it so much. So the poor lady that would wet herself, it was like a hose pipe, if you remember. And when someone was given foreign food and they reacted badly to it, it was a huge reaction of vomiting.
But it was also because of this snobbery. If Gregg Wallace would have been doing that comedy, or like Jim Davidson, or they go, oh, he's racist because it was, a gay bloke and a bit of a lefty and this doing it. It's all right, they can get away with it. It was two-tier, really.
Yeah, but it's a racial angle, which is, well, he's a gay Jew, therefore, because he's Jewish, the racism thing doesn't count. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I do think,
because there was a time when Jews were thought of as ethnic minorities.
Well, you can't even get that now. But I mean, I don't think, I've seen Eddie Murphy play Jewish guys, and he didn't do it offensively, and he grew up, I think, in New York, so he knew the kind of thing. There's a nasty side to it blacking up, and there's also like Harry Enfield being Nelson Mandela. There wasn't nasty,
superb.
But he had to do it, so it's a bit sort of
Nelson Mandela's ecstasy tablets.
There's different ways of blacking. Obviously, the minstrel show.
When Lenny Henry
was in the
white.
black and white minstrel show.
He went white.
Oh yeah, he played.
Was it Steve Martin?
Steve Martin. It was really
like...
good makeup, but he was actually in the minstrel show while there was all white people blacking up.
But the one that amazed me was when Michael Sheen, who I think is absolutely brilliant, said only Welsh
racing driver.
Only Welsh actors should play Welsh people, and you think, but you played all sorts
Brian
of
Clough,
American presidents.
Tony Blair, Did he play Chris? He did Chris. None of them were Welsh, were they?
Getting back to this airbrush.
Yeah, by the way, the key thing is when you're acting, what you have to do is pretend to be someone you're not. What you don't do is you don't go, right, we need someone to play Nelson Mandela. What we need is a black guy from South Africa who was wrongly convicted of terrorist offences. No, you just get someone to pretend, right?
Getting back to this airbrushing British comedy, I do some work for Rewind Television, and they buy old episodes, whole series of Please Sir.
I love those channels like Talking Pictures TV.
Talking Pictures,
it's
Rewind,
great, isn't it?
Yeah.
St Trillions.
And those guys are terrified that they're going to put something out quite innocent that someone is going to be offended by all these years later.
Yeah. But you're saying Chuck just told me they brought the monkeys back. I thought that was all right, though, anyway.
Oh, the monkeys is okay.
And they brought Monkey Magic back as well. They've redone the series.
Is that one with her? No, Monkey.
That's Donald Trump.
No, I thought that was Mr. Magoo. Or something. I don't know.
Mr. Magoo. No, you're getting it serious. Yeah, you're getting it all wrong.
He was a short-sighted.
You should have learned this in history at school.
You know, you make a good point there. Mr. Magoo was the short-sighted driver, and all the jokes are about him crashing into things and not seeing things. You couldn't. It was a cartoon. You couldn't do that.
It was mocking his disability.
Yeah, you couldn't do it.
Outrageous. He'd got a PIP. He'd have a beautiful Audi now, wouldn't he?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, let's not discriminate against him because he can't drive as a driver. It's disgraceful. It was like, do you remember when Donald Trump was complaining about the air traffic controllers, and they said people who are mentally deranged have been discriminated against in air traffic control jobs, and we should get more mentally unstable. No, we don't want them in bloody. But I'll tell you what. I mean, I worry, and I was watching Jimmy Carr the other day. Who was guilty of this. People now just stand up in stand-up comedy routines and just go, Brexiteers are racist, aren't they? And you think, it's not a joke. I mean, it's not funny. Nobody's laughing. No. If your stand-up comedy show is getting applause, not laughter, what does it say? You're just standing there ranting. Unlike me.
Was it Jimmy Carr or Alan Carr?
Alan Carr, more probably.
Alan Carr said, the thing that will get me cancelled is not what I said last week. It's something I said 30 years ago.
Yes.
And I think
that'll be Jimmy Carr, probably.
And I think that's what a lot of...
Yeah, he said he's already said it. Yeah. But the interesting thing about Jimmy Carr is Jimmy Carr and Frankie Boyle are the same act, but one of them is perceived to be posh and one of them's perceived to be working class.
Yeah, but he's changed around the Scottish guy, hasn't he? Because... he's become all woke from being totally anti-woke, joking about Jay Goody's cancer diagnosis, which was disgusting, and, Jordan's kid, disgusting things he said. Now he's all woke.
Do you think they were disgusting? I mean, I've laughed at a lot.
Joking about what the Jay Goody's tumour and how when it was disgusting what he said there. It was really bad.
Yeah, but hang on a second. So for me, right, okay, to be fair, I used to do university debates and then I worked in the House of Commons. I find almost nothing offensive. It just doesn't bother me. He wasn't saying it to her face. It was a joke about...
She was still alive and she's got kids.
Can I run this by you, right? I love Ricky Gervais, right? So say you went to see Ricky Gervais, you and your wife went to see Ricky Gervais, and tragically you'd lost your child to cancer.
Yes.
And you were going for your first night out. You're going to have dinner, hotel, and we just want to laugh. And unbeknown to you, he's doing jokes about kids with cancer.
But he's not,
I don't think that's funny.
But he's not. Well, it wouldn't be funny in that scenario.
Well, in any
but he's not trying to personally needle you. This is the thing that worries me about kids at university. This belief that when somebody makes a speech, it's personally about them. That's very similar to the people I used to get writing to me when I was in politics, saying the guy on the TV is personally sending messages to me. No, he's not. He's just making a joke.
Yeah, but he mentioned Jay Goody's name, and she had kids. In fact, she was still alive. She didn't have long left, and he said, she's getting better looking as she loses weight from the cancer.
That wasn't disgrace. That was.
In fact, it was a disgrace. It was unbelievable.
There are some. I believe there are some things that you just should not joke about.
Yeah, but the problem is Okay, so I get that, but it has to be a personal decision. Otherwise, if it's a matter of public policy, you end up in the Mary Whitehouse situation, where Mary Whitehouse effectively believed that the person that was most offended in the country should decide the standards of taste and decency for everyone. It's really important that even if there's a line, that line has to be for you personally. and not a matter of public policy.
Yeah, that's a good point. He makes a good point.
Yeah, but I would say that being on TV, and especially the BBC, is different. I would say you shouldn't ban anything from the theatres. You should let the audience decide. You shouldn't have someone who doesn't like it saying, no one else should go and see it. You should have the freedom to pay your money.
But there's always going to be a different standard. If you met me in the pub, I'm going to tell different jokes to what I do on air, because obviously the people in the pub, if you like, are hand-picked friends of mine.
Yeah, but you've got banter police coming soon, haven't you?
Yeah, you have.
But what about, so we've got some Alf Garnett up there.
Yeah, don't tell him. We love to watch Alf Garnett.
So
I never saw it, so I can't comment.
No, but the thing is, a lot of it just isn't funny anymore anyway.
But no, it was taking the mick out of the racist. He was the butt of the joke, Alf Garnett, wasn't he?
Yeah, but with his delivery, he sounded so harsh and so angry, it hasn't weathered well. Yeah. Had he done it in a more gentle way, I think a lot of it would still be funny.
He was one of the old school Jewish socialists, wasn't he, from London? One of the kibbutzi type people. So I mean, he literally he believed he was going so far that he was sending them up. There was
he
no
didn't write it, did he? It was someone else wrote it.
But what about I'm free? What was his name?
John Inman. Are you being served?
Yeah,
I'm free.
I mean,
and what about Molly Sugden's pussy jokes? And on that bombshell...
No, we're losing Alex right now. I'm really sorry, Alex.
Don't worry, we'll never find out.
One sentence on Glastonbury. It's rubbish. Thank you, well done. That's Alex Dyke, who's an expert on the BBC, ex-BBC. They should have put you on Radio 1. They'd have far fewer legal problems if they'd have done that. I guarantee you, when he comes into our studio, there's none of that Savile stuff going on, is there?
Oh, thank you very much.
I know that's a low benchmark.
He's more Mike Reid.
OK, thanks so much to Alex Dyke. We'll be back with the press preview just in a couple of minutes at Virtual Ash.
At Andre JP Walker.
0344 499 1000 is the number to call. We'll be back in a moment. This is the press preview with Andre Walker, Asher Gould and Phil Dave. Now, Phil, I have to warn you, every single time you've ever come on this show, even though you're a good friend of mine, even though you're a solid supporter of the channel, you work at the station, as a solid supporter of this show, I do call you Dave at some point.
Yes.
Every single
like
show.
Like his schoolmaster used to. Dave!
So in this studio now, either the name Phil or Dave are appropriate to... If you've got two first names, though, Phil...
Well, you'll go nuts if you realise that I've got a third name with a middle name as well.
Go on.
My middle name is James, so I don't know what...
Phil, James, Dave.
Well, technically,
I mean, basically, your parents have just thought of all the most obvious...
Just like
all the most obvious names. They've gone, OK, well, we can just go, yeah, so, what, Bob, Phil, Dave... Yeah, that's what we'll have.
Bob?
Yeah, Bob.
They're all the names of kings, aren't they?
Well, I suppose, technically speaking, it would have been more likely the kings, yeah, I suppose?
Yeah, King David.
Yeah?
No, but Dave
King
is...
Dave.
Dave is
Professor Dave Starkey, don't call me that, even in jest.
But Dave...
It's uncanny.
He didn't like that.
What was Dave before it was altered?
Oh, it was Davatsky in South Africa.
Davatsky?
Yeah,
Davatsky.
And then when it in Belarus, it was something like Desutnik.
Desutnik?
Yeah, something like that.
Well, the front page is apparently a more interesting.
I can't spell it either. So.
By the way, keep tuned if you're listening in the morning. Mike Graham will be on after us. But let's start with the paper and new migrant swap deal to start in weeks as Macron blames Brexit for small boats crisis. Yeah, he would do, wouldn't he?
Right, so let's
and he disrespected our Brexit vote as well.
Let's just be clear on what we said about this last week, Phil. So the new rules are going to be this. When the boats come over, a percentage, it's yet to be agreed,
when
of
the
those
boat
people,
comes in.
a percentage of those people will be sent back to France. Right. But for every person that's sent back, somebody is going to be given the right to come to the UK as an asylum seeker through the embassy in Paris and flown in.
And bring loads of their extended family.
Now, you see, one of the obvious things about this, of course, is that the reason why people are crying out to try and get a grip on migration in this somewhat godforsaken country of ours now is that it's in a bid to try and get numbers down because we are too overstretched. The NHS is fit to burst. There are people who find it very difficult to get school places for their children. There are those who struggle just with basic services in general in their local communities. The idea is that
crime's gone up as well
have
a lot.
The infrastructure to deal with more people. So a simple swap, regardless of whether or not someone's coming here illegally or, in inverted commas now, legally, sorry.
So okay,
So the bit that we alluded to at the beginning, your family are historically Belarusian, from the Belarusian Jewish community. Right, the reason I make that point is because a lot of the rules that are being exploited now were brought in after the catastrophic disaster, which was governments like Britain realising that they had the opportunity to save people from the Holocaust and failed to do so. Now, to be fair, it is worth the important caveat of 1939 was not the main thrust of the Holocaust. It happened much later. Certainly, Auschwitz wasn't open at that point as a death camp. But I just feel sad about the fact that I don't even know that if there was something similar today, like a genocide, whether our system would even work for that, because we are now so full of fake asylum seekers that if there was, say as an example, let's go with the Jewish thing again. Imagine Israel. Well, let's go with Ukraine, really.
Okay, well, say all the Ukrainians had wanted to come to Britain. They didn't. We couldn't have taken them. Say as an example, in Nagorno-Karabakh, which was the example of where Armenia genuinely thought, and they were wrong, Armenia genuinely thought that Azerbaijan would commit a genocide against the Armenians. That didn't happen. Had that happened, we would have been unable to take them in. And so I just feel like not only have we ruined our country with this dodgy immigration, but actually we would still be in the same position with Nicholas Winton's Kinder Transport as we were in 1938.
And these aren't people fleeing for their lives. They're in France, for God's sake, and even initially they were probably just economic migrants.
Look, the bottom line is that sort of regardless of whether or not someone tries to twist the sort of more liberal-minded rules by saying that actually international law states that an asylum seeker is allowed to make a beeline for whatever country they want to, regardless of whether or not they're in a safe space or not. Which, well, I mean, it doesn't mean that that country has to sign up to it. It doesn't mean that that country has to agree to it.
We don't have to take any of them, even in the ECHR, because of national security trumps, though, you can just say no.
But if there was a war in the United Kingdom now, where would people go?
Very simple. France, the Netherlands, the Irish Republic, the Channel Islands, the Isle of Man. How many people, imagine there was a war now, we were all here and the bombs started dropping. Phil Dave goes, oh, I hear Tokyo's good this time of year. No genuine asylum seeker would ever do that. And that was the thing that amazed me. And people are just going to listen to this and groan, because I made this point so many times about Moldova, that nobody went to Moldova prior to the Ukrainian war as asylum seekers. And then they took, at one point, 10% of the population were refugees, because genuine refugees wanted to go to Moldova because it was next to Ukraine. Fake refugees didn't want to go there because it was poor.
The bottom line is that you can't have endless numbers of people coming into a country that doesn't have the infrastructure to support them. And frankly, I think it is absolutely vomit-worthy, the fact that successive governments have now for so many years, let's be honest, since the days of Tony Blair, right, because that's really when things started rapidly going downhill for this country. Ever since then, successive governments have treated the British public as stupid, as if they don't know what they're talking about. The second you say one thing against anyone who's a genuine asylum seeker. No, sorry, not genuine asylum seekers. We know most of them.
Economic migrants.
Right? Whatever the heck you think, most people who appear to be coming over in small boats, you could have fooled me and the rest of the world to say that they're genuine asylum seekers. They look well fed and they've got plenty of sort of things like mobile phones on them. And
also, a lot of them don't like us. They don't like the West.
Well, that's why they're coming here.
By the way, I'll tell you something. I'll tell you something about Ukraine. I will tell you a fact about Ukraine. You get to the Polish-Ukrainian border as a man, right, and you try and cross it, you will show your passport. If you are under the age of 35, you will either have a medical note or you are staying. Those are the two options. This whole 23-year-olds are fleeing. 23-year-old men are fleeing conflict and leaving their wife and kids. It's not real, and nobody believes it's real.
Well, unless the government pretend to believe it's real, because they certainly appear to act as if they do, because they're just not taking it seriously.
And also,
it's send in the Navy. Do whatever you've got to do.
What happened about Starmer smashed the gangs? He sort of got rid of that quietly. That was how he was going to defeat him. But obviously, do you remember they arrested one man in all this time, and he had a press conference? Yes, I'd just like to announce success. We arrested a man, one man, and so he's quietly not mentioned the smashing gangs and brought in this stupid.
I'd charge a fortune to the manufacturers of the small boats themselves. I'd actually sort of say if so much as one person jumps off a boat with your branding on it, we're coming off. Have you
ever heard the amazing story about citric acid? Right, no. So
you got a good citric acid story. I don't think I've ever heard a good citric acid.
I'm going somewhere with this.
Yeah.
Right,
I was gonna say,
there was a group of people being investigated for producing heroin. Right, and basically they had bought a large quantity of citric acid. Citric acid is entirely legal. It's basically lemon juice, right? Anyway, but of course what happens then is the customs officers began a prosecution because they said, we have not found any heroin, but we have found 5 tons of citric acid, and you cannot explain to us what use you've got for this other than as a cutting agent for heroin, because they use the citric acid in the heroin in dried form. The reason I tell this story is because of this. There is somebody in northern France who buys 50 dinghies a week. Right. Yeah. Now, you may not have caught that person for people smuggling, but what you do is you pass a law to say something like, if you are buying equipment, it's like the classic offence, what is it?
Going equipped.
Going equipped, or documents that would be useful for commissioning a terrorist attack. If you are buying 50 small boats a week in France and you haven't got any of them, I would suggest that that's the person going.
It's equipped. Like you can get arrested for going equipped if you've got a lever, something to leave the doors open and a knife.
Don't you think though that even if that is the case, that they, I'm not so sure they buy 50 at a time, or whether or not it's a case of sort of they turn them around and
we get them.
But they do sometimes go back. They go back, although it's small beer.
They go back and forth. I mean, it's a little bit.
And they don't arrest the drivers.
It's a bit like the illegal migrant version of the Dover Channel.
We are the people smugglers.
Dover Crossing, or whatever.
This is the bit that people forget. We are the people smugglers in the Mediterranean. The reason all those Africans end up drowning was very simply this: if the navies of Europe do not find the boats when they're 20 miles off the coast of Libya, they can't make it all the way across the Mediterranean. We are the people smugglers.
We have the blood on our hands. We're working alongside organised criminals as a unit. Anyway, The Times and Meta poaches AI engineer from rival with £200 million pay offer. That's not bad, is it?
$200 million, but still.
Oh, is that all?
Oh,
I wouldn't bother with that then.
Tell him to F off.
Meta has poached a former Apple engineer to join its superintelligence team by offering him a rumoured £200 million pay package. The owner of Facebook and WhatsApp has been luring top artificial intelligence talent from rival companies with huge salaries. So there's a big AI race, and a lot of people, this is like a bubble again, isn't it, like the internet? Some people are going to make millions and then it's going to pop and the rest of us will just end up. Apparently, already a lot of jobs have gone and we're sort of like the frog in the boiling water. There's a lot of white-collar jobs that are first to go. The blue-collar ones, like plumbing and that's going to need robots, although they're already Tesla are making them, Elon Musk. But it's the white-collar, it's actually the lawyers and doctors that... They're not employing people because of AI. I mean, what do you think about this? Have you thought about getting into AI? You've got your fingers in lots of...
Thought about it. Unfortunately, I don't quite have the brain to program.
Dave.
I've often wondered sort of how it would sound if I actually sort of put my voice through some sort of AI-generated voice software.
Could a computer do your job? Would it actually do it better?
More than likely, but until that's discovered, I'll keep quiet of you.
No, I think it's already around.
It's the
ZX81.
I've listened to the AI Andre Walker voice, and they just haven't got it. They haven't nailed it. It can't do a good impersonation.
I can hand on heart say I've never heard anyone with your voice, Andre.
Because it can't get the throatiness and the mix of northern and southern words. It struggles.
No.
Because everyone, do you know everyone when they do an impersonation of me, I sound like Johnny Vegas. All right, mate, let's go down, pub. I don't sound like that.
I don't get it, monkey.
Anyway, next story in the Times. Crackdown to cure UK of sick note epidemic. GPs told to prescribe job coaches in the gym. GPs will be told to stop issuing millions of sick notes that sign people off work and instead send them to job coaches or the gym. Apparently, you can go online now because, you know, they do proper doctors online, and you say you pay 30, 40 quid and you get the sick note.
This boils back to infrastructure again, you know. This sort of, and people are going to look and say, hang on a second, what are you talking about? How is it possible sick notes has anything to do with infrastructure? It's very simple. Because for as long as our NHS can't cope with the volume of people trying to take advantage of it, and to those who actually are trying to use it legitimately, the simplest thing for doctors to do is, rather than to actually properly analyse to determine whether or not someone is sick or not, is to sign it off in a hurry and say, no worries, I'll send this to you. And then it saves them 10 minutes.
And this is where...
It saves them 10 minutes trying to actually analyse. I'm not saying that doctors are being negligent. They're not. They're actually doing it because they simply can't cope.
I had a friend of mine who's a GP, and he said this bloke came into him and he said, I need to go into rehab, I'm addicted to food. And he said, you're not addicted to food. You can't be addicted to food, right?
No, you can't.
And he said, oh well, you know, the counsellors. So he phoned up this counsellor and he said, listen, what is your medical qualification? They don't have any. You've told this man he's addicted to food. I said, let me tell you what. He said, I'll tell you what the problem is. He's lazy. Right, and he's overeating. And the problem is, you now want me to sign him off for 4 weeks, so he won't even be in work, so he won't even shift his lazy bum during that 4-week period. And do you know what my friend said to me as a GP? He said, the one thing that did strike me was this woman said, if you don't give him a sick note, somebody else will. So what's the point in saying no?
But he
said, on that point, we both agree.
But I do think people are, you know, when you see these 50, 60 stone people who, you know, they obviously don't want to be bedbound and dying at the age of 50 or 40 or whatever. They are addicted to food. They can't stop themselves eating all this food.
No, but it's not.
And there's a certain part, some people, obviously there's...
Some are, but there are various degrees of sort of
reasons
that's what I'm saying,
but that
someone
proves
gets
there
to
is
that stage.
But that is an addiction. Same as drugs.
But is it? I mean, it could be thyroid. Do you know what I mean? It's not necessarily addiction.
Well, they eat bloody loads, don't they?
Here's the problem. The reality is, what we have done in recent years is we have been on the altar of trying to do the right thing or pretending to do the right thing or virtue signalling. We have really, really harmed people. I've always said on this show, people laugh or don't laugh. During the lockdown, I drank vodka for breakfast. Right, and I was not the only one. There will be people listening and watching who, you know, the pizza started at 5 o'clock and the drinks started at 3 o'clock. Then it was 2 o'clock. Then it was 1 o'clock. Then it was 9 o'clock in the morning. I was placed in solitary confinement, house arrest, on my own for 2 years, and basically I spent the time getting shedding.
And that was addiction, really.
Of course, well,
it was a drug addiction. So
absolutely.
food. So you are. I mean, it is really an addiction.
Yeah,
isn't it?
but the reality is, the reason why I was drinking vodka for breakfast was you'd placed me under house arrest. I worry that it's society that's doing this.
Yeah. Next story in the Times: Europe could block deal on boat migrants, and it could scupper this one in, one out, or one out.
I did like drinking vodka for breakfast.
Yeah, you've never stopped, have you? You've carried on with the tradition. On your cornflakes, lovely.
I will be honest, I had a lovely time.
Oh, yeah. So Keir
Say,
Starmer...
if you do feel the urge to do that, please seek the suitable help. But yes.
Yeah, I've always said, don't get the vodka out until this morning's finished.
Use the pina colada before that. So Keir, drink sensibly, don't drink. The best is nothing at all.
No, let's just be clear. This segment was about not doing that, right? And I don't drink.
You've given up drinking, haven't you? Apart from on his cornflakes,
I think during that period I had that much that I did my whole lifetime.
You're still drunk constantly. So Keir Starmer and President Macron have announced a groundbreaking returns agreement to deter migrants from crossing the English Channel. However, a lot of the the Prime Minister Macron said they would implement the deal within weeks, but there are likely to be significant legal hurdles. The deal requires a legal verification of the European Commission and EU states, some of which have already objected to it, because obviously they'll get some of these migrants. These will include claims based on international human rights and refugee laws, but officials say they would quickly be able to establish a legal precedent that would speed through appeals. Anyway, they're all very annoyed with the rest of the EU.
But now they know how we feel.
So we all understand. So we all understand what's going on here. This is basically just the EU idea. Let them all in and then just spread them out across the continent. Now, I remember what Poland said about this when Germany invited 2.5 million people from the Islamic world in. Poland said, this is like organising a Christmas party and everyone who comes stays over at your house rather than the people that organise the party. That is what is happening. Germany says, everyone can come to Germany, don't worry, you can live in Poland. Oh, well, that's
and
not
now
the way it
Schengen's
works.
sort of finished, isn't it? They're not carrying on with it, including it was Germany that started. Anyway, look, we've got a little break here. It's me, Andre, and Phil Day with the press preview. Mike Graham at 6 if you're listening in the morning. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.
This is the press preview with Andre Walker, Asher Gould and Phil Dave. And by the way, in the break we were just talking about something that I think is really important. And Phil said this, there is a great hypocrisy here, because when we have settler communities in Britain, the people who are so in favour of it are the people who object to settlers elsewhere.
Well, they're the ones who are anti-colonisation. So when they start sort of teaching us how evil Britain was in history for going in and invading other countries and taking over it, what the hell do you think they're, what on earth do you think they're allowing to happen right here, right now?
But it's not a country, is it? It's a culture colonising, and we're sort of blindsided by it. But that's basically what's been going on for 1,000 years.
Colonising is colonising.
If we change the terms, if we say that Bradford is a settler community with its own language and culture
and laws,
rather than saying they're discriminating against migrants, what they are is settlers. If you start talking,
and we saw in in LA, didn't we? And with the Mexicans saying this is now Mexico, they would never want to go back to. I mean, they were basically colonising what they'd lost.
Yeah, and there comes a point, I would suggest to you, where people in Bradford and people in Burnley will legitimately want self-determination for the Pakistani communities there, because they continue to speak Urdu, they continue to operate under Sharia courts, and then it may well be that we have to end up in a situation like the United States, where there are reservations for indigenous population, the indigenous community, and then different laws in different places.
And we'll set up casinos and all that.
Do you know where the hypocrisy continues, of course? If we turn our attention to the Middle East, which of course is this ongoing saga that no one ever shuts up about for some peculiar reason, because naturally both the main news channels in this country are so obsessed with it, there's nothing else happening here, is there? But let's take a little focus on this for a second, because the number of people who have said that the reason that they are so anti the state of Israel is because the way that Jewish people were allowed to migrate there after the Second World War, because and then they just somehow colonised and then pushed out the indigenous, haha, in inverted commas, individuals who live there. No, not quite true, but let's not dwell on that particular fact just for the moment. And yet, these same people are actually allowing it to happen in reverse.
Well, look what happened. Egypt was 90% Christian. Lebanon was 90% Christian. The whole Middle East was mainly Christian, 1,400 years ago. And by the sword and other means, it's now not. That's not colonisation.
But what the Jews have done, ironically, is completely opposite. What they've effectively done is they've gone, right,
they've driven out the colonisers.
We were driven out of our homeland, and actually, we accept a principle which the Jewish community didn't believe for a long time, that actually there has to be a homeland for every peoples, right? Therefore, we are going to return to our homeland simply because generically that's what needs to happen.
And there were Jews constantly there for the millennia as well.
This is like the population of Birmingham saying we are going to return to Pakistan because we recognise that Pakistan is our home. Yeah. That's happening.
But also in the Arab lands around, 900,000 Jews who'd been there for millennia were kicked out. So obviously you just had to settle the landmass.
But the lesson from the Jews is very simple, that when a people depart from their homeland, only trouble will come about. And I think that we've seen that in various ways.
Yep.
Well, yep.
I'm not trying to throw you out or anything, but...
Shall we throw him out? Yeah, it's a little microcosm of what happened. No, cave
Hang
in.
on, you'll be next, Ash.
Yeah, I'll be next. You see, this is what happens. At first, they came for Phil Dave, and then they came for Ash.
Are we allowed to say this? If all settlers left, I'd be willing to lose you two along. I'm joking.
Very hurtful. He's not really. Cave in will fail to stop
the price is worth paying.
This is in the Express. Keir Starmer has been accused of caving into France over his migrant deal. Critics claim will fail to stop the small boats. That banquet they had, by the way, had all the pomp and circumstance. It was apparently £300,000, which is disgusting when this country is on its up. There's a lot of people can't afford to eat.
I disagree.
And then they're now coming out with if you're on the dole, you can actually make more than someone on a minimum wage. It's better to be on the dole claiming benefits and
isn't that ridiculous? I mean, I've actually thought that for a very long time without actually needing any proof of it. It must be the case.
But they changed the law a few years ago, so you can't be above the average.
It's got to be more beneficial to be on benefits.
Yeah, but the benefits were still £30,000. That's a lot of money, and certainly in cash is far more than.
And sometimes it's a lot more than that as well.
I remember there was a great story about they've redone all the terrace houses in the north of England, or a lot of them in the north of England, including my hometown of Lee. Right. So I remember seeing them, and they'd sandblasted them. These old Victorian terrace houses looked the business, the way they'd done the front of them or whatever. And every now and again, you'd still see one that was pebble dashed and looked like crap. And basically, I remember saying to somebody, I can't believe the people that have left their house awful. And there was a bloke in the barber's I was in, he went, excuse me, I'm one of the blokes with the crummy house. I went, what happened? And he said, I've worked all my life. And he said, to have your front redone, it was free if you were on the social, it was free if you were a migrant, it was free if you were an asylum seeker, but if you had a job, you had to pay £2,500, and I couldn't afford it. And he said, so you walk down my street, and I'm muggins. Because I've got a job, I've got the worst house.
I remember Abu Hamza, the terrorist, had a granite worktop. I think it was a 25 grand kitchen put in by the council. And he had, a couple of few wives who had their own homes.
Yeah, what Abu Hamza did...
How does anyone think this is okay?
I
don't understand one person thinking
Labour in Hammersmith and Fulham had given Abu Hamza 3 houses, and the Conservatives under Stephen Greenhalgh were about to give him a 4th, and Greenhalgh said, I will not do it. So what happened with Hamza was, he'd get a wife, and then they would divorce him civilly. They wouldn't divorce him religiously because he believed in polygamy. And then he would move out and he'd get housed with a new house, which he'd buy under the right to buy scheme. And there was the fourth house, and Stephen Greenhalgh, as the leader of Hammersmith and Fulham, we'd given Abu Hamza £2 million in discounts on houses, and people will be shocked who are working at the moment theorying that. But here's what happened then. Stephen Greenhalgh said, if the court rules that I have to give him a fourth house, I will ignore the court. I will fight it all the way, and then I will go to prison for ignoring the ruling. And then he said there will be a new leader, Conservative leader of Hammersmith and Fulham Council, who'll spend another 4 years ignoring the rules of the court, and he'll get locked up. But he said, as long as we control this council, we will not house Abu Hamza again. £2 million.
And these are the ones who shut the... Because the mosque threw him out in Finsbury, so they shut his street in sort of central part of London at 5 p.m, and all the days when he wanted his prayers for his followers, you know, this terrorist who's now got life in prison, in the Supermax prison in America. They shut the street every day for years and years. And apparently France and America, who knew he was a terrorist, France were apparently thinking of sending over, you know, Secret Service to bump the guy off. It was that unbelievable.
Oh, we have been a friend to the terrorists over the years.
We've got Hamas commanders living here, you know, who are some of them arranging these marches.
We've been a catalyst. It's worse.
We always has been. I mean, we've got people in the Emirates who used to send their lads and girls to private schools in this country. You won't do it now because they're worried about them getting radicalised. We're now the radical part of that. The
United Arab Emirates are saying that they're going to consider some sort of visa controls and whatever because Britain is an Islamic radical nation, in terms of the fact that we are the HQ for many of the Islamic fascists that are terrorising the world.
It's not too late to save this country,
No,
but I don't half wish someone would wake up and do it, seriously.
The Guardian, UK and France...
Should we just throw it in the bin, The Guardian?
Yeah, I mean, I'll mention one thing. Strike kills 15 waiting outside Gaza clinic, at least 15 people, including 10 children. By the way, Hamas have child soldiers. A 15 or 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old is counted as a child. But they're a terrorist. If they're coming at you with a gun, it doesn't matter how old they are.
Hang on, Ash. We've got to correct you there.
What do you mean? What?
A child's a child. It doesn't matter if they're trained as a terrorist, does it?
If they're shooting a gun at you...
I'm saying what they're going to say. It doesn't matter whether they're trained as a terrorist, does it?
Apparently 76% of people killed in Gaza were males and of military age, which, as we say...
Oh, that doesn't matter. Let's pick on the minor mistakes that occasionally
And by the
made,
way, the IRGC, who aren't a prescribed terrorist organisation, when they first got into Iran, they even used children under the age of 12, but they were too small to put in fighting in a unit, so they ran them across minefields to explode the mines. They gave them a little key to get into heaven when they're martyred, and hundreds of thousands of children from the ages of about 8, 9, 10, 11 were just ran through, their own children were ran through to blow up mines. So this is the kind of people we're dealing with and not prescribing, and there's loads of them here. There's sleeper cells here, which is probably why, you know, we're in such trouble. I mean, we've already had attacks from them. And why are we letting these boats in? I mean, if you're a terrorist, just send them in the boats.
It's very simple. If the Western world don't realise, or people in the Western world don't realise that Israel is doing the whole world a massive favour.
The German Chancellor said that they're doing a great favour.
If they do not realise that, then they are part of the problem. It's as simple as that.
But I think the worrying thing is they do realise it. They're just weak cowards,
terrified,
or maybe even worse than that. Anyway, we've got a little break at this juncture, haven't we? Mike Graham on, if you're listening in the morning from 6, and me and Andre and Dave, Mr. Dave, will be back after this.
OK, this is the press preview with Andre Walker, Asher Gould and Dave Phil. Phil Dave is his actual name. So what's next, Asher?
Our Daily Star, the most hard-hitting paper we've got. Thought of the day. Oops, I've done it again, whatever that means. And Greg Pant excuse. He's autistic, which is why he had no pants on. That's what he says. Tell it to the judge. No, there's no court case. Trump does dumbs up, and Trump said to the president of Liberia, Joseph Boakai, he said, "You speak good English," and then he was told by the president, "Yeah, that is our first language."
No, the worst one was because of the jokes that are made, which I think are unfair. But when Keir Starmer got the South Korean president wrong and went for the interpreter instead, right? Look, lots of people struggle with the the Far East, and there's jokes that are made about it. If
well,
you
they say the same about us.
If you don't know what the bloke looks like, study a picture, right? Because what you're doing is you're just leaning into a stereotype.
But this was during the time he was channeling Enoch Powell, wasn't it? When he said the strangers in the eye, and then he go, "I don't know what came over me. It must have been from these Ukrainian."
No, it was worse. He didn't know what was in that speech, did he?
Yeah,
he hadn't had time to read it, so he didn't know what was in.
He's like Anchorman. Like, remember when David Cameron said, "I've been a West Ham fan for many years," and then he read it out, and he was apparently a Villa fan, and someone obviously had written his speech. Go, "Oh, it's the claret and blue one, isn't it? Yeah, it's West Ham," and he read it out just because it was on the auto cue. I mean, talk about being an automaton. Gregg Wallace is the Daily Mirror, the heart of Britain, and this is Gregg Wallace. Storm, you'll never change. Gregg Wallace was told by BBC boss the behaviour that got him sacked from TV is unlikely to improve. Just give him a pair of pants. And cut the labels out. Claire Powell said in a letter, "I do not have the confidence that you can change. The Furious Stars hired a top lawyer to fight the claims." He's blasted in Bieb letter sacking him, but Starbrand's claims unfair and hires a top lawyer.
But just to be clear, now obviously this is running in the morning and Matt Graham's up in a couple of minutes, but what are the claims? I mean, is it just he made some off-colour remarks?
And, one woman said he grabbed her bottom and that they used to get in the changing rooms and he'd just whip his trousers off and there was nothing, obviously because he couldn't wear pants because he says of his medical condition.
I went on a sailing trip with work once and there was a bloke in there and I said, "Look, I'm sorry, that is unacceptable. You can't just walk around the changing room naked at a work event. It's not appropriate, even though it's the male changing room."
I would not do that again.
we went fishing, he brought the tackle.
I do worry though when it comes to situations like this, and the fact is that sort of until you actually get someone who is charged with some sort of criminal behaviour,
which nothing of this has just been a BBC.
Until you actually get someone who's charged with criminal behaviour, what it does is it offers some sort of safety net, if you like, for people to come out of the woodwork claiming that something has happened to them when it is possible that they're just jumping on a bandwagon. It's also perfectly possible that they are genuine victims. Of course it's possible, we know that.
But they don't do it to any of the other, they're big stars like Hugh Edwards.
The problem you've got, I think, I don't know, there were some people I know who were claiming about Hugh Edwards.
Yeah, but they never did anything to be.
No, absolutely no. The BBC is a totally
unless you're a working class guy with a pants problem.
No, the BBC is another matter altogether in terms of how they handle this.
Maybe the underpant lining had perished
again.
over the years.
What I find really quite annoying is the way that sort of we don't deal with this sort of on the basis of someone is innocent until proven guilty. Now I don't know if Gregg Wallace is guilty or not, but the point is that yet another person has had their career removed from them.
Well, Kevin Spacey is a big example.
Cliff Richard's another example.
But hang on a second. This is the problem. I think there is a deliberate effort to mould two things together. There is sexual abuse and there is sexual harassment. When they go, he behaved inappropriate sexually, well, those two things are very, very, very different. Look, there's always
and possibly
been...
There's accusations.
It's possible neither
There's always been... To complete the point...
Accusations.
To complete the point, there is always going to be two things, isn't there? There's always going to be something that is criminally prohibited and something that is inappropriate in a work environment, right? So if what he's done is patted someone and it's not an offence, but it's something that he shouldn't have done at work, that's fine. But when we start to deliberately confuse criminality with misconduct in office, that's when problems start to exist. Because, look, there are things that are completely legal that I can do in a nightclub that I can't do in the office at Talk. Right? That's legitimate.
But you know as well as I do, there are also examples along the way. I think everyone has happened across an example or two of misconduct in their life, and possibly even gross misconduct. But yet, just because these individuals are not so well known, they're not necessarily made a scapegoat out of. Now, let me be very clear about this. I'm no Gregg Wallace fan. I've no idea if he's guilty or not. To be perfectly honest with you, if he
got the same haircut.
Yeah, we'll go to the same barbers. If he is, then I very much hope he gets suitably punished. But my point is that when we sort of go with this trial by media basis, this is a very dangerous business.
Well, he's already had the punishment. The process is now the punishment, isn't it? Because, like you say, he's lost his job now.
But has he lost his job based on people kicking up a stink, or because he's genuinely guilty? And I want to know that actually someone is criminally charged with something before.
But what if there's been a proper investigation and they've discovered that it's, you know, so many people are saying this happened?
There's plenty of what ifs, but if that is the case, and if he is indeed guilty,
he said he's going to fight it and he's lawyered up for it. But
if he is indeed guilty, then I very much hope he gets suitably punished for it. And I mean just throwing the law at him.
But I still think we're struggling here, because the point very simply is this. The BBC are not saying this man's a criminal. They're saying he was a KNOB at work, and that is not appropriate.
But some were making allegations that he did grab them. And
like
you say, there's no criminal threshold. Innocent until proven guilty.
I return back to the Neil Fox thing, where in court they said the allegations against Neil Fox, which was that he patted people and made inappropriate remarks, they said we are minded to believe the women, and we don't believe he committed a crime. Kaboom! Which is basically, you have been an idiot at work and should be fired for it. But what is happening continually, because of the Jimmy Savile situation, we are continually, deliberately or otherwise, confusing inappropriate behaviour at work with being a sex offender, and that is very, very, very dangerous. Someone like Gregg Wallace, if he has fallen below the standards of behaviour at the BBC, hard to know how you can do that. But nonetheless, if he's done that, it's important that we make clear that he's not a criminal and not been accused of crime.
I mean, look, the bottom line is, I think, with all of this, and no revolting pun intended there, you can very easily, I think, decent human beings can establish what is appropriate behaviour and what is inappropriate behaviour. It's just as simple as that. And
I don't know. Some of the stuff I've done could read badly in an HR report.
It could read badly, but I think those who know you know that you have quite a, how can I put it delicately, a very warped sense of humour. But the bottom line is that they know that it's not because you're an inappropriate kind of person, you know. But and it's because you know the difference between what is appropriate and what's inappropriate. And even actually by saying some of the things that you claim would sort of read badly with HR, it's not because you're that kind of person. It's because you're pushing the boundaries in jest, and you'd back off if someone said, I don't like that.
I know what you're driving at. What you're driving at is what I do is off colour. What somebody else is doing is deliberately in order to needle someone because they are a bit of a weirdo. Is that basically what you're saying?
I think that's part of it.
Yes. Okay.
Right, let's go to the on that. Went a bit quiet there, didn't it? Went all very quiet.
Profound.
The Daily Mail. I put my 11-year-old daughter on weight loss jabs. I mean,
did you?
No, I didn't. But I mean, I suppose, you know, if it does actually help, you know, it's a very sensitive
I worry about
age. I do worry about long-term and side effects and stuff. But I mean, obviously that is a crucial age, 11, and if it, you know, she could get in a bad way at that age. I don't know.
Let's be clear. She's a big girl, right? But I would argue with an 11-year-old.
Very pretty, though, very pretty.
Well, they always say that, don't they? If they lost the weight, they'd be pretty, right? They always say that. But there we go.
Are you even allowed to say that now?
Probably not.
That's my Gregg Wallace moment. Look, an 11-year-old, right? You know what you do? You stop buying the wagon wheels. It's as simple as that.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, here's the thing that I
They'll
find
get to the
baffling.
chocolate cupboard.
Yeah, but here's
Yeah, but
what I find baffling.
How is an 11-year-old eating?
Thank you. I find baffling about children of a certain age is, they're not doing the shopping.
Well, no, but she's 11. When I was 11, you went to secondary school and you go to shops and you go to chip shops and they can't control you when you're out and about.
You just don't give her any money.
You don't get to that weight overnight, though, do you? The truth is that sort of it's a learned behaviour.
Yeah, well, yeah, parents. I mean, some people say, it's child abuse. If you
I worry about. I've got to say this to all of you. I'm not a medical professional. I've always said this. If you take medical advice from a political commentator, you're an idiot. But I worry about Ozempic. I worry about these weight loss jabs, and I'll tell you why. Because I've got a friend of mine who is on Ozempic as a diabetic. It's diabetic medication, and he literally, because I'm quite a big guy, has begged me not to take it. He says the stuff's horrendous. There are side effects, and he believes, and now once again he is not a medic, but he genuinely believes that in 20 years' time we are going to seriously regret this Ozempic explosion.
There'll be a scandal, will there?
Look, I think that there is...
He likes you chunky as well, doesn't he?
The problem you've got is that there are side effects that do affect people from certain medications in certain ways, and we don't really know this until the fullness of time. I guess there had to be someone who was sort of the first wave for people to try penicillin.
Ozempic was invented to ensure that people who couldn't regulate their blood sugar do not die as a result, right? In terms of, you are taking a drug that is being used for diabetics in order to stop yourself eating. I would suggest. The reason why I'm overweight is because, and I'm starting to lose weight now.
You're just big-boned.
No, not big bones. That hole is bigger than that hole, right? For a start, right? And everyone knows what I'm talking about.
I can't confirm that, by the way.
But secondly, what I was doing was downing.
He points to his mouth and his nose if you're listening.
10 pints. Yeah, that's right. I was downing 10 pints of lager. Right? You know what? People are fat because they eat too much. Nobody remains fat if they go running and go on a calorie-controlled diet.
Look, it is very simple. You are what you eat. It's just as simple as. I appreciate that there are a handful of cases where obviously some people do have medical conditions that do determine how big or thin they are.
But that's steroids and things.
It is a handful, and the truth is we shouldn't be using exactly the same way that what we were talking about earlier with controlling migration for the number of people who do have genuine claims should not be a good enough excuse to stop those who are behaving inappropriately.
I'll tell you what my favourite was when I worked at the House of Commons. We used to get them in. I've got a thyroid problem. That's why I'm big. No, you just don't like running and you do like cake. Let's just be... I've got a thyroid problem, I can't work.
Apologies to anyone who does have a thyroid problem.
Genuine thyroid problem. My mum had a thyroid problem. She wasn't 50 stone. Anyway.
But anyway, the Daily Mail, smashing the gang's latest. Having scrapped Rwanda, Starmer launched his own deterrent yesterday, a half-baked one-in, one-out deal with France, yet it won't stop the boats. And even as it was unveiled, hundreds more migrants landed here because it was a lovely day and loads came yesterday. Starmer's big plan to solve the Channel crisis was already threatening to unravel last night. The PM and French President Macron announced a one-in, one-out migrant swap deal, which was far less ambitious than expected. Keir claimed it was groundbreaking, like the Smash the Gangs. A pilot scheme would prove the concept that if you come over by small boats, then you will be returned to France. Apparently it will only be 2,600 a year, and it's already projected that we're going to get 55,000, and the prices have come down to 1,500 quid.
And for that we've paid 800 million. Isn't that nice?
To the French.
What's a bargain?
And £6 million a day on the hotels, and it's probably more.
I worry about this. This is exactly the same as the Rwanda deal, the bit that people forgot. I remember I phoned up Peter Cardwell and I said to him, Peter, is this true what people are saying about the Rwanda deal, that for every person we send to Rwanda, we have to take a disabled Rwandan person into the UK? And he said, yes, we didn't realise that, but the Downing Street have confirmed. Unbelievably, for every person on a small boat we send to France, they're going to send us another one. Well, that's the same number.
There's no difference.
Asher Gould said this last week. That proves that they are committed to uncontrolled immigration.
They are. And we'll be back after the break with The Sun, and it's Gino D'Acampo. Get me out of here. Under-fire TV chef Gino D'Acampo is set to start a new life down under. The 40-year-old...
You're giving it all away.
I'm giving it all away. Come back in 2 minutes and we'll tell you the rest.
Hello, this is the press preview with Andre Walker, Asher Gould and Phil Dave. And on the front page of The Sun, I'm shocked.
Yeah, well, first of all, The Sun get your favourite paper for less than 10p, so that's good. And Gino, get me out...
10p less, not less than 10p.
10p
That would be
per day.
9 pence.
10p per day.
Say that might
for
be a
less
bit
than
cheap.
10p per day. Gino, get me out of here.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Under Fire TV chef Gino D'Acampo is set to start a new life down under. The 48-year-old is launching multiple work projects in Australia 5 months after ITV cut ties with the former This Morning favourite following allegations of inappropriate behaviour. But I remember him coming on with Phil and what's her name, and he was naked with just something. No, he was actually naked, but you couldn't
I think he was
see.
wearing an apron, I think, or
They
something.
were all
wasn't he?
laughing and all this.
Yeah, that was clearly organised.
And then suddenly they're going, oh, he was naked. I can't believe it. It really is like changing. It's
Well,
like.
yeah, but hang on a second. If we were going to... So I've taken my top off on this show before
I'm
and
gonna
stuff like that.
complain about it. I'm
But I
gonna
mean,
complain
these
about it.
I had
stunts,
to clean
these
the
stunts,
chair.
Yeah.
these stunts are agreed in advance. You don't... I mean, when Gino D'Acampo said, if I do this, I'll streak, and then they went... oh, he's come in naked. It's not as if he arrived in his taxi for work that day and they went, oh, what a surprise, Gino's naked. It's not the way it works.
Yeah.
Look, I just...
Also,
don't-
I'm shocked that he's a convicted criminal. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I told you about that. For burglary. He robbed Paul Young's house when he was a youngster in Boreham Wood. He stole his guitars, and more unforgivable, he stole some VHS videos, and they included his wife on it, who died of cancer. And Gino D'Acampo spent a couple of years in prison and then came back, was given a career, a bit like, well, actually not as bad as what Den did, Leslie Grantham, who played Dirty Den. He actually murdered a cab driver in Hungary when he was in the British Army, shot him and robbed him. But yeah, he was given a
This
career
is crazy.
as a murderer.
It's absolutely crazy.
So it's crazy when you hear about
Gino
things like
D'Acampo. Hang on a second. Gino D'Acampo, just to be clear, he is from Italy.
He's
right?
forgiven him, has he? Paul Young
Well,
forgave him,
you
yeah.
say he's from Italy. I've always... I dare say he'll probably sort of come after me if I say what I think. I've always wondered how he can have different degrees of accent. But then again, at the same time, I do appreciate that there are people who just genuinely are voice chameleons, and it is possible that they sometimes sort of change...
But he
their
is a
slightly.
proper
Yeah, but
Italian, isn't he?
But hang on a second. If he's from Boreham Wood...
No, he's Italian.
Oh, he is
originally.
Italian.
He is a
Oh,
proper
my God,
Italian.
my whole world...
He's not like that Joe D'Amacci. What's the matter, you? Hey! He was apparently
no
from
respect.
Hey, what do you think? He was from like...
Shut up, your
Joe
face.
Dolce was from like Rotherham or something.
Mind you, do you know, this week, Norman Tebbit died, and I remember Sir Anthony Berry's daughter going, well, if I grew up in Northern Ireland, then maybe I would be a terrorist bomber as well. Patrick McGee was from Norwich.
Hold on, Chuck just told me Renee and Renata weren't foreign. Did he make it up, did he? Oh, was he... Is he from the Midlands, Lichfield? Is it?
Is he?
She destroyed it. And Boney M never sang their songs.
My favourite story of them all is, you know how they say that immigration doesn't change you? Well, do you know that Joanna Lumley's from Pakistan?
Yeah, I knew that. She was born a British.
Well, I was going to say she was... Yeah,
British during the Empire,
yeah,
wasn't
she was
in the
born
40s?
in sort of like the reign of...
Well, like Cliff
the
Richard
Punjab
as well. It was.
Yeah.
But I think it was different. He
Freddie Mercury.
Zanzibar.
No, he was Zanzibar.
He was
Yeah.
actually
Well, he wasn't from Pakistan.
Zoroastrian. He was.
Was he? Oh.
Yeah. He was a Zoroastrian.
I went to Zanzibar a couple of years ago. Do you know, it's actually really nice.
Balsara was his real name, wasn't it?
Was it?
Yeah, it wasn't Freddie Mercury. It was something Balsara. Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. Migrant dealers, hundreds get to Britain. Hundreds more dinghy migrants got to Britain because it was a lovely day. As Sir Keir Starmer said, he was getting to grip on the crisis, just like he said he was going to smash the gangs.
Sorry, can I just ask, does anyone actually believe him when he says he's going to get a grip on the crisis? Because I sure as heck
I've
don't.
got a controversial view. I don't believe Keir Starmer exists. I believe he's like one of those Soviet leaders where they've just got like a cardboard cutout.
AI sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
An automaton. It would explain a lot.
If Keir Starmer really existed, he'd be capable of doing something as PM, whereas actually he's not capable of doing anything. And I think that in that speech...
He's got such a pained look on his
No, he
face.
looks like a waxwork. And I think when he made that speech and that he hadn't read it in advance, I think the AI had gone wrong.
Well, that would certainly explain a lot.
But I don't believe
can't
that Keir
necessarily
Starmer
say
exists.
I think that is the reason.
I think
but
Keir
yeah.
Starmer doesn't exist. I think it's Tony Blair with an AI bot.
Yeah, well, he's running things, isn't he? The Daily Telegraph. What does Jerry really want now? Because her husband got got the heave-ho, didn't he, from his Formula One team? And she says his problem is he acts like he's still 20. Anyway, that's that story. Wallace
20 stone.
Wallace banned by BBC after being ruled unfit for workplace. You see, it's not a criminal threshold in that sort of thing. It's a different threshold. Gregg Wallace has been banned from working at the Beeb after the corporation ruled that he was not safe to have in the workplace. So I didn't say that about Jimmy Savile or Hugh Edwards.
Yeah, Hugh Edwards is
perfectly safe, these other guys. In a letter of dismissal from Claire Powell, the head of compliance for the Beeb, Wallace was told that he had made inappropriate jokes in the workplace and executives did not have the confidence. So actually...
It's a terrible shame, really, that they think that inappropriate jokes is enough of a reason to fire someone.
It's
and yet inappropriate reporting.
They wouldn't have said that to some middle-class woman if she'd said something to him that if he complained, they'd laugh it off, wouldn't they?
Just to be clear, is Gregg Wallace on a worse deal than Hugh Edwards? So basically, off-colour jokes, bad. Downloading, well, let's not explain what download because this is broadcast in the morning. No. But what what he was enjoying himself to is allowed, is it? You can keep your pension, you keep all your money there. I mean,
the evidence speaks for itself.
Well, it does, doesn't it? I mean, I just think the BBC have so lost the way, and I have to say, when we saw them refuse to call Hamas terrorists. I know it's not related, but it just shows the moral bankruptcy of these people. I was listening to the BBC the other day, and they even said Hamas, who the British government have qualified as terror. Hang on a second, it's a prescribed terrorist organisation in the United Kingdom. They're bothered about you making a joke, and they're literally backing terrorists.
Well, could you imagine these same idiots saying this about Al-Qaeda around about the time?
Well, they would do
ISIS, beheading people and everything, which is what Hamas did.
I'm sure they would do that. It's absolutely despicable.
And on that one, Iran out to kidnap and kill Jews in Britain. Iran has targeted prominent Jewish individuals among at least 15 attempts to kill or kidnap people in Britain. It's still not a prescribed organisation.
No, they're doing all right. We quite like
the
them.
Intelligence and Security Committee said yesterday the MPs warned of a sharp increase in the physical threat. And £3 meals plan a bad joke, says restaurateurs. Labour's plan to launch state-funded restaurants with meals for as little as £3 has sparked a backlash from hospitality chefs. Well, it would do, Chiefs.
And what they've done is
funded meals.
What they've done is they've recruited the bloke from Pizza Express who has managed to make cheese on toast cost 40 quid a head. Right, so he's going to be skilled at keeping
nice cheese on toast, though. I had one the other night. It's beautiful.
It's true. Cheese on toast, 40 quid. Oh, well, he's an expert.
But you want it's about a tenner, and you get a few other bits.
No, it's cheese on toast. It's just they've got the tomato sauce in the middle rather than on the top.
It's only about a tenner, though. Ain't 40 quid. I mean, for the whole.
Oh, I'll tell you what, you get a couple
mushrooms,
a couple of vodka and cokes.
Yeah, that's where it all adds up. Yeah, that's your. You say how did this come to 40 quid? I only ordered a pizza.
Well, I've had 35, 40 quid Pizza Expresses before today. I was fuming. Cheese on toast, 40 quid.
Yeah, but it was the 8 vodkas that you had.
No, what you want to do is you want to go to the Wetherspoons, which is, do you know what I had? In Wigan Wetherspoons the other day, I had the large breakfast.
You're classy, aren't you? Dear, oh dear, on the Wigan Wetherspoons.
Wigan Wetherspoons, it was great. It was great. I almost bumped into Pete Barnes, no I didn't.
Right.
But I had the large breakfast, I had extra bacon, extra sausages, extra toast, and a bowl of chips. But what I realised was that was £13.50, whereas the big breakfast itself was only £6.50. So what I'll do next time is just have 2 large breakfasts.
Well, it's all taken out of that one. That's a good little hack that was.
You got to be fair to Wetherspoons, is that they do actually
most of the
know how to make things
them,
affordable. So why
they're
not?
£10 to £15 just for our legal team. £3
anyway. Pizza Express game.
No, I did have one the other night, and they're delicious. They're not cheese on. I mean, pizza is basically, but very
cheese on toast.
Yeah, but it's mozzarella and it's a nice tomato sauce. It's dough. It's dough.
It's all right. It's like bread. It's cheese. It's like cheese on toast.
It is a sort of.
And you can't say mozzarella's not cheese. It's like.
No.
Well, I tell you what. When my mum and dad were struggling for money, French bread pizza is what it was called.
Findus. Bit of French bread.
A bit of tomato puree and a bit of cheddar on top.
The crispy pancakes. That was a later addition. And what were the pop toaster pop things? There was
Findus.
Pop tarts.
Do you know when Findus? Do you know when?
No, not Spice Girls.
Do you know when Findus shut down their operation in Britain? You know what they did with the warehouse? They started filming Dragon's Den in it. That is absolutely.
Didn't they shut down Findus because of the horse meat stuff?
We just got a minute left. Quickly, just say civil servants accused of post office cover-up. Civil servants have been accused of covering up the report that could have exonerated sub-postmasters. A lot of them died, killed themselves, and just lost their families and friends. And anyway, Dave, Mr. Dave, that was a great avenue on again.
Bye.
Yeah.
By the way, just want to say to you, absolutely want to offer my support to the dog tag you're wearing. Explain what it is, because I think it's extremely important.
Oh, thank you. It is in solidarity with those who are still, after 600 days plus, being held hostage in Gaza. So whatever your politics is, I don't personally care too much about either side of those who are in charge, but what I do care about is innocent people who have been snatched from their everyday lives being held against their will.
Imagine
tortured. You
some are dead as well.
Okay, thank you so much to Phil Dave, an absolutely fantastic cause to support, and depressing that they've still not been released. Mike Graham is up now if you're listening on Friday morning.
Good morning. Yeah.
And if you're not, we are still here for a couple of moments. How many people are still awaiting being liberated? Do we know?
I think it's about...
It's 50, but they know half of them are 50. Dead. They know half are dead, and the others will be starved and treated. It's unbelievable what's going on here.
I mean, we know exactly how they've been treated, because those who have survived have actually said how they've been treated.
And we've seen them paraded, and when you see people, there's got to be a ceasefire. They don't mention hostages, so it's like, oh yeah, you can keep the hostages, like Keir Starmer, like, let's have a ceasefire, and you just keep the hostages. But apparently, hopefully, they're going to get released at some point.
And presumably you're going to wear the dog tag until they're all released.
Until the last one.
I completely agree with that, and my thoughts and prayers this weekend are with the hostages. Nearly 2 years now. Ugh, horrendous thoughts. Thank you so much to Phil Dave, who will be back on, no doubt, at some point in the future. We didn't get to Metro front page, but what is it? It's all one in, one out.
And Johnny Depp. And on that bombshell, we'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Real men do not eat quiche. It is a fact that what you eat is a reflection of you. I remember when I worked in the House of Commons, I always used to say, look, it's a steak and chips for the right-wingers and a mushroom phyllo for the left-wingers. Right.
Yeah, but I've eaten actually in Parliament, and I went to the Churchill rooms, and someone I was with had the steak. It was about 20 quid. It's so subsidised. You get a gourmet meal for about 15 to 20 quid.
Well, if you had £13, here's what you could buy. Pret a Manger has launched a new range of premium salads costing up to £13, which the company says are priced competitively. Listen, get yourself to the spoons, I'm telling you.
Yeah, but I mean, it's gone so expensive, Pret a Manger. I mean, I used to get the ploughman sort of thing. It was like £3. Now it's like £5-6.
Well, I always make this point, and I just want people to call in to discuss the cost of living crisis. Are you struggling at the moment? I argue the problem is the value of the pound has gone down. So you're all right because you own your own flat, but if all you're going to do is just buy food, the cost of food's exploded.
And energy, 5 times more than America.
I will say one thing about Pret. Anyone who eats hand-massaged kale who phones in this show will be immediately cut off. Right, we're not having...
massage the kale.
We're not having...
Why is it?
I don't know what they do with it, but it could be anything,
I mean, I've heard of the Wagyu beef when they massage the cow. You know, the cow
give the kale a hand massage. Yeah, massaging the kale.
No, you toss a salad, don't you, before you...
Oh, you toss a salad.
They toss it, hand toss.
Oh, is this like my local Thai massage parlour?
They do tossing? No,
it's hand massaged, is it?
If you're listening on the radio, give it or the TV, whatever, give us a ring 0344 499 1000, whatever you want to talk about.
Here's the thing that upsets me. Nando's normally used to cost me about £13. It now costs about £18, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, everything has gone up horrifically, and it still is. And when they say...
you know what I did? I've been feeding my dad. So I've been staying up north with my dad. I bought myself a barbecue, 20 quid at Asda, one of the barrel barbecue things.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And we've been getting chicken thighs from Lidl, and then get the Lidl peri-peri sauce, marinate it overnight, so it's like a Nando's, except it's on a proper barbecue, not a grill. So we've been doing homemade Nando's, and it's been superb. In fact, we've had it every. So I mean, I don't want to be awful, but obviously, it's two single blokes sharing a house together. Obviously, in my dad's case, he doesn't wish to be single, so I'm sorry about that. But as two single blokes, we've been consuming Nando's every single night.
The likely lads around there sounds delicious.
For about the past 3 weeks.
Men behaving badly, very badly. So if you've got any, home-cooked cheap meal... stepdad, you dirty old man. If you've got any cheap meal hacks, because, I mean, apparently Aldi's become a bit more expensive, but there are shops around. You can, there are hacks. You can make yourself... I've got
to say to you, these cheaper shops, the quality of the meat is absolutely extraordinary. Yeah. I mean, I got something like 8 lamb chops for £8. £1 for a lamb chop. I mean, lamb chops are expensive, right? That's pretty good. But the thing I like, and loads of people go mad about this, I go to the halal shop because I like mutton. Cubed mutton in curry.
Mutton?
Yeah, and you can't get it anywhere other than the halal shop. My halal shop does stun animals before I don't know how it's halal in that case. But anyway, what are your meal hacks? And if you are willing to phone me up and tell me that you eat hand massaged kale, then I'm willing to debate what on a. In my day, it was called cabbage. But anyway, Paula is in Halifax. Paula, you're on talk.
Good evening, Ash. You okay?
Yeah. It's morning now. Rise and shine, everyone.
Well,
morning is broken.
No, it's bloody morning.
Yeah.
Right, Andre. I've been listening to you all evening.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go.
What's he done now?
Here we bloody go. You were saying something about
thyroids. This is thyroid related, isn't it?
Was it kale related?
No, it's not bloody thyroid related. Do you know something? I'm actually just going to ask you something, and I don't want a 10-minute answer. I want a 30-second answer.
Just come out with it then, Paul.
Do you actually have a heart?
No, I actually use a pump that's in my foot to get the blood around my body.
Why? What's he said that was so heartless?
Oh, there's been loads of stuff tonight. I've been disgusted.
Oh, okay.
What was the first thing that disgusted you?
Well, something about cancer with Jade Goody.
I didn't. No. Let's not do this.
We were having a go at the person.
I said that we shouldn't prohibit jokes being made as a matter of public policy just because it offends you. I didn't say anything about Jade. I never mentioned the words Jade Goody until just then.
Right. Okay, that's fine. another
What's
thing.
the second thing
by
that disgusted you?
the way, I will say one thing. My mother died of lung cancer, which is why me and my dad are staying together. So, in terms of making a joke about cancer,
he didn't joke about Jade, could he? We were slagging off the comedian that did that. What is the second thing that What's the second thing that disgusted you?
I totally misunderstood then.
Yeah, okay, but maybe you weren't with the second thing.
No,
that
let's just be clear on one thing.
Maybe you were right on the second thing.
Stop for a second. I just want to be clear on one thing. Perfectly happy for you to have a go at me, but if you misheard that I was belittling cancer patients, then that is
ridiculous. But let's see if the second thing that disgusted her was correct. What was it?
The second thing I'm sticking up for you guys, because like the Jimmy Savile and all them things, and now that they're like pointing the finger at them, and them, and I think I feel sorry for the guys.
For Jimmy Savile?
No, for Gregg Wallace. You're talking
for Gregg Wallace, right?
If they've not sexually abused a woman, and it's been proven.
Well, nothing's been proven. They haven't been able to prove it. There were allegations that he did. But it's only things he said.
Let's just nail this really, really clearly, because Paula, by your own admission, you have misheard things. Just to be very clear, the point that we were discussing. No, it's really important that we get this right. And the reason I want to get it right is because Gregg Wallace is being investigated at the moment. Just to be clear, he's being investigated for patting someone and for making inappropriate jokes.
I've watched it all evening.
Yeah, okay, but
the investigation's finished. He's getting lawyers now. But anyway, so we've settled that one. But maybe the third thing that disgusted you, it did actually happen. What was the third thing that you were disgusted by?
Do you know what, Ash? I've forgotten.
Oh.
Which one? What?
It was so bad she forgot.
Oh, that's good. See, we're all right. Turned out nice again then. So you can. But what did you want to talk about? What else was it? Just what you were disgusted back? He so feels disgusted.
I'm so upset. I'm going to celebrate with some hand sanitizer.
Was it the cost of living, Paula, that you were going to talk about? What's your meal hack? How do you save money with meals?
Oh yeah, the cost of living.
Yeah.
And yes, it was. And then you were taking the piss out of people who were fat.
Did that disgust you? So there's another thing.
Yeah, and I saw you, Andre.
I said, if you want your 11-year-old to not be fat, don't buy a wagon wheels.
Yeah. Oh, Ash said, she's a good-looking girl, though.
I didn't look at the picture.
I shouldn't have said that.
I just said.
She was. No, I mean, she was.
And you went, no, she ain't. She's just fat.
Well, I didn't quite say that, but I will say, but they always say that. I'm sorry to be like James Well, but they always go, oh, she'd be gorgeous if she lost the weight. That's not true normally.
No, but that's not what I was saying. I was saying she was, she was a pretty girl even though she was overweight, but she was 11. Yeah. And I think, was Andre just being honest? Are you disgusted by his honesty?
Honesty, yeah. Honesty is the best policy.
Well, honesty may be the best policy, but sometimes, Andre, you go too far.
Well, if you're look,
and do you know what?
What about those people who are ugly who just become chubby because it doesn't make a difference? You might as well enjoy yourself.
Yeah, that is true. You might as well.
Might as well enjoy yourself.
Bella Remberg.
Your mouth never stops talking. You don't let guests speak. You don't let any fucker speak. To be quite frank.
Sorry, but anyway, look. Have you got anything else you were disgusted by?
No.
Have you got? Can we have your meal hack? What do you cook that's good meal, nutritious and cheap?
Oh, piss off.
All right.
That was the nature of the phone.
She's just disgusted about everything. Would you spend £13 on a tossed salad?
I'm actually stressing out, to be quite frank.
Why?
Because I'm getting me.
You shouldn't be going out this time.
Where my cancer spread on Thursday.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Right, so you're finding out about this. You had an MRI scan, didn't you?
Yeah, I had.
What? So you got the results coming up, have you?
Yeah.
So that's a very worrying.
The cancer's come back. Yeah. I don't know where and if it's spread or not.
So what is that? Just constant worrying? Do you find it hard sleeping, thinking about it?
Yeah, definitely.
And when are you getting? When are you finding out about
it? Next Thursday, so it's a week today.
No, it's just a week. I mean, that's a lot counting every day, aren't you? But do you feel?
Yeah, I've rang my GPs today to try and get some info out of them, but they don't know anything and they won't know anything until the consultant writes back to them.
Okay. Well, good luck with it, man. I hope
Paula,
everything
our prayers
is as
are
good
with
as it
you.
can be.
Our prayers are with you. Just want to be clear to everyone with cancer, do not give up. Obviously, the survival rates for cancer increase every single day. And learn a lesson from James Whale, who has been written off about 10 times, and then new treatments have come, and he's lived for an extra 5 years.
Well, he got it originally 25 to 30 years ago. Well, it was about 25 years ago, I remember. So, you know, always get checked out when you've got symptoms.
Now, what I want to do now is just say to you, we were talking a little bit about food, and we were talking a little bit about Lidl, right? Have you ever wondered, you know how Lidl...
And Aldi as well.
How Lidl has, like, you know, German week or French week or whatever, where they have specific products.
No, I didn't. I don't really go there. No,
okay.
Tell us about that.
So what happens is Lidl is a pan-European country.
I'll tell you what Waitrose do after.
Where I'm from, they don't even have Waitrose.
No, they wouldn't.
No. Do you know? Up until the 1997 general election, Waitrose had no branches in any constituency that voted Labour. But anyway,
it just goes to show now the Labour ones, they all go to Waitrose, and they did in Preston.
Okay. So here is the thing. Lidl has specialised foods for a specific period of time. So they have Italian week, where they sell pasta and this. Have you ever wondered, in Germany, France, in Sweden, Belgium, Luxembourg, Italy, what you get in British week? In Lidl?
A spotted dick? I mean, we don't really... eggs, bacon and...
Okay, so have a guess. Come on, keep guessing.
A cheese sandwich?
No, so cheddar cheese...
A boiled egg?
Cheddar cheese is on there, right? Stilton is on there. Baked beans, right?
Which is an American dish.
But apparently Americans don't eat it.
No, only the cowboys, and they don't really get that anymore.
Fish and chips, which they often make with Alaskan pollock. Okay, fair enough. Shortbread biscuits. People go mad for the Walker's...
That's Scotch, isn't it? That's a Scotch
biscuit. Yeah, but it's
biscuits.
British week. It's British week.
British week. Right.
Jams and marmalade. Branston beans. Well, Branston beans,
Well, it's funny because Branston started making baked beans, and my mate was confused, and he said, "Oh, I like these Branston beans because it's beans with the bits of Branston in it." It wasn't that. It was just their make of beans, and still we mock him. We mock him about what he said about Branston beans. They didn't have any Branston.
Okay.
All right, it's a good idea. Always put HP in your beans, by the way. Or Daddy's sauce.
House of Parliament sauce as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so
used to be made in Aston by the Villa Ground. I think it's in Poland.
What about salt and vinegar crisps, wine gums and licorice all sorts, Jaffa cakes, carrot cakes, muffin, fudge and toffee, Irish steak and lamb, British week. Well, that's controversial in the Republic, but okay, fair enough. What about frozen shepherd's pie, frozen toad in the hole, and frozen roast beef dinner?
We have
They sell Yorkshire tea, and they sell whiskey, gin, and other Irish drinks. They don't sell haggis, but they do occasionally, but not very often.
Do you know Lidl and Aldi were brothers who fell out in Germany? Yes. And it's the same with Puma and Adidas. They were brothers, so, you know, this is what happens.
German brothers don't like each other.
No.
Right, what are we saying? Somebody's messaged in about Wetherspoons, have they? Where is it?
Second one? No, we haven't got... Oh, there we go.
Where's the screen? Where's the screen? Come on, get it.
I think you click that one, and I think we broke it. Oh, here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go, yeah. Andre Nash, I told you a while ago, Lee Witherspoon, 99p a pint for Worthington bitter and $1.99 for guest bitters. Let me know if you're up this way, if you get a pint. Great show.
Well,
we'll be up in a couple of hours.
I'll tell you what I did. I took the MP for League, James Grundy, when he was the Conservative MP, into Wetherspoons in Lee, and he'd obviously never been in. And after Wetherspoons had launched their app, and he said, I don't understand why you get table service in Wetherspoons and nobody else does. So I kept him going for the whole night. I love the Wetherspoons in Lee. The only reason I was going to the Wetherspoons in Wigan is because my dad happened to be going to church in Wigan then. Well, it was after church. And I've been going to the Sir Thomas Gerrard in Ashton in Makerfield.
Do you admire, what's his name, Terry Wetherspoon? He's a great man, isn't he, that guy? He's a great man.
Tim Martin.
That's the one, yeah.
Terry Wetherspoon.
I thought that. Well, I was just guessing.
No. This is so. Tim Martin at school was always told that he would be a failure in life by his teacher, and his teacher was called J.D. Wetherspoon, and so he has named every pub after the teacher who said he'd be a failure.
That's always the way, isn't it? Anyway, look, we'll be back in there. Give us a ring, 0344 499 1000. There's the number if you're watching. If you're listening, just listen and call the number. You can text us 87222. Text the word talk in your message. And also, you can voice message us on WhatsApp, same number, 03444991000. Send a voice message, very easy. Keep it under a minute. We'll be back in 1.5 minutes.
Okay, this is The Late Show with Andre Walker and Asher Gould. We've got James Whale back on tomorrow. He'll be coming on just for a couple of minutes at the beginning of the show.
Well, probably about 20 minutes or, you know, depends how he feels, but he's always on for at least the first or second break.
Asher, this is about managing expectations. Say he'll only be on for a little bit, and then when he's on for longer, people will be happy. Anyway, our producer, Chuck, reckons that he's got a story about Aldi. Come on, Chuckles.
Well, I say Audi. Is it Audi or Aldi?
No idea.
You
Don't
say
care.
Aldi, and I say Aldi.
And does that complete your story, Chuck?
No, that's not the story. But Audi was a family company.
Right.
It was run by two brothers.
Yeah.
The brothers fell out because one wanted to sell cigarettes and the other didn't. So they got
I want to sell cigarettes.
They got a map of the world. And they drew a line for it, and they agreed one would run Audi in the south and one would run it in the north. It's now two different companies, and you never know which one you're shopping in.
And what about? I'll tell you what's interesting. Woolworths were similar to that. They didn't break because of a family feud, but Woolworths apparently the Australian one is still going well. Oh, I forgot to say Marmite for sale.
It's the same with CNA. By the way, Winfield was the owner, American owner. His daughter married Cary Grant, by the way, who was from Bristol. But he owned a massive house, the best house in Regent's Park. And the IRS, the American tax people, he owed them a lot of money. So he gifted it to the States to pay his tax bill. And that's why it's now the president's residence in Regent's Park when Trump...
Is that...
Yeah, it was an IRS payment, basically.
Whoa, that's crazy. Right. That is crazy.
Have you got the story of why Adidas and Puma fell out? Was that because of cigaretten as well?
No, they just hated each other.
Yeah,
the two brothers.
But apparently the one boot, the very classic boot, is exactly the same. The Puma one is exactly the same as the Adidas one. Anyway,
I think it was something like the younger brother felt passed over, and so they had a big...
I want to give a packet of cigaretten away with my Adidas.
You lie!
9! Anyway, let's go to Chris in Wolverhampton. Chris.
Let's do a bit of racial stereotyping of the Germans.
My grandmother was Austrian, so it's all right. Chris, Wolverhampton, what's up?
Good evening, gentlemen. I was just wondering, what do you think of the 1% bikers setting up the shield to protect the children and women of the country?
I think I've heard about this, and I don't know.
I'll tell you what you're going to have to do, Chris, because I haven't heard about it. Explain it to everyone.
Well, if you go on Facebook and type in the shield, you'll see that the 1%, the president of the 1% outlaws in the country...
Which is the biker gang, isn't it?
Yes, it's a biker gang, and they've set up the protection for women and children.
So what they're basically going to do is they're going to go into ethnically mixed areas and fight the Pakistani grooming gangs.
No, I don't think so. I think they like walking around the kids home from school. I know there was mothers and parents who went around estates and crime fell loads because of that. Because the police aren't patrolling.
The bikers in the States, I mean, there's, what was it, the ones that protect the children? They go to court.
Hell's Angels, is that?
Ones.
Well, there was the Guardian Angels. Do you remember on the Underground or subway in New York? It was so bad that and they're starting it up again, and it actually did stop crime because basically they sort of stood there with. I remember them in London. They were here for a bit and they finished, but they're bringing them back up again.
I think my argument is this: that the police have given up on policing the streets. They are very good at detective work and criminal investigations, but in terms of the day-to-day policing, they've given up doing that.
But even the investigations, there's so many people like paedophiles online that they can't cope, and there are paedophile, hunters, you see, and some people say they're bad and good, but now they've actually got they do it all legally, and they do catch a lot of paedophiles.
I had a friend of mine who worked for the, it's called the National Crime Agency then, but it was called the Serious Organised Crime Agency at the time.
Soccer.
He played, he pretended to be a teenage girl online. And he said, look, these paedophile hunters, to be fair, he said they seem like sad individuals, but when you get the computers and look at the stuff...
but they know how to do it legally now, and a lot of those people are people who've been abused or know people who've been abused themselves, so they feel it, and the police do now sort of cooperate with them, and they call
the professional standards have increased. The problem is that they put the videos online, don't they, which upsets the police. But my mate said secretly, I'd rather one of these dodgy characters be off the streets than moan about the guy that got him off the streets.
And they catch hundreds of them. They do. They really do. Anyway, yeah, Chris, you still there? Anything else? Were you disgusted by anything we've done on the show?
No, I love the show. We watch it pretty much every day.
Cost of living, Chris. What's your secret meal hack in Wolverhampton, a Savile? Do you make your own?
No. I make my own cheese and potato pie.
Cheese and potato pie?
Oh, I love it.
Do you have it every day?
Explain how to make cheese and potato pie.
It's a lovely special.
No, explain how to make cheese and potato pie.
Let's have Chris in Wolverhampton cheese and potato pie recipe.
Well, it's basically mashed potato with cheese mixed in and there's some pastry. I mean, what more could you have?
Do you make your own pastry or do you buy the pre-prepared
pastry? I make my own as well.
Do you ever just have the cheese on the mash and have beans on the side, variate?
Oh, yeah, that's
hang on a second. So you're saying to me...
with it,
sausages?
No, wait. I'm interested in this because I reckon there's people who'll try this because, all right, it's a bit carby, but it's quite nice, right? So,
it'd be delicious,
You do mashed potatoes as usual, grate a bit of normal cheddar cheese in, put it in a bowl and put a piece of pastry over the top and bake it.
I'm hungry.
Is that what you do?
Well, you can put pastry on the bottom end as well.
He puts pastry on his bottom as well. And you said you have mushy pies?
Oh, I love mushy pies as well.
And so you have a banger for if you're celebrating.
Baked beans or...
What sauce do you have? HP, Daddy's, Heinz?
Daddy's, does that still exist?
The supermarket's fruity brown sauce is the best.
Fruity brown, yes, I remember. Do you remember HP fruity sauce? Do they still have that?
Yes. I don't know whether they still do it, but I know Tesco do.
And have you seen that posh brown sauce, Stokes? It's quite nice, it's quite nice.
I'll have to try that one then.
Yeah, no, go out and try it, and nice one.
I've got to be honest with you. I know it's dodgy, but potato pie—that's a good idea,
Tell us your potato pie recipe.
Well, I'll tell you what they do in Alsace.
Oh, hold on, Chris has got a potato pie recipe.
Yeah, but you chopped in smoked bacon as well is even better.
Oh,
what can you do? Because I'm Jewish. What could I substitute?
Turkey bacon, smoked.
Turkey bacon. Tofu,
not tofu.
Sausages.
I'll tell you what. There's a dish in Alsace which is dauphinoise potatoes.
Dolphin? No, I will not eat dolphin.
Dauphinoise potatoes with the pastry top.
Is it tuna friendly, dolphin?
No, but surely dauphinoise is the one with the sliced potato on top.
Whale? Yeah, no.
Hang on, isn't fish and chips Jewish?
Yeah, fish and chips is Jewish. If you
Oh,
check,
you
they're
just
all-
agreed
they're
with me
all
then.
circumcised. No, Portuguese. It was a Jewish Portuguese fried fish and the chips in the East End, and that's all. Immigrants do bring great food, of course. Chicken tikka masala. You got the Balti Triangle in Birmingham.
Of course, Lance Foreman invented smoked salmon. No one had heard of him 20 years ago.
No, but apparently that was a Jewish dish.
It was.
Well, now in Scotland, it's you know.
What you've got to remember is that chicken tikka masala was invented for the English.
It was.
That's right, yeah. If you go to India and ask for a chicken tikka masala or a sagaloo, they go, "What are you talking about?"
you know?
But you go egg and chips, you go, "Yeah, coming right up."
Do you know that Patax markets its products in India as English food?
Yeah, if you go to China, right, you ask for an egg foo young, they don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but to be fair, China's like a continent. They've got different food from different places.
A text has flooded in about the potato pie. Some advice here. Stay on the line, Chris. We've got some advice.
Somebody said, "You're my wife now, Dave." No, I don't know why that's...
What does that say? Busy bird. Here we go. We've
not
lost
working.
it. It was just that. Roll it up a bit.
It's not working.
What's that?
Here we go. Cheese and potato. This is from Busy Bird. Cheese and potato pie when we were kids in the 80s didn't have pastry, just mashed potato with grated block of cheese. Well, it's not a pie then. Cheese mixed in and then put in a dish and oven. It will. Oh, all right. So you make the crust on the potato. Try that, Chris, because you're going to actually save on pastry.
I know you can.
Oh, somebody says
What
put
you do is you
onion
put-
in it.
The best thing is you just put cheese over the top and then wait till that melts, so you've got a proper cheese
Oh,
crust.
so you got like a sort of, yeah, it's like a macaron. So another one has flooded in. If you've got any cheese and potato pie hacks, send it in. Andre Nash, this is from Rob, and it says he's from Castle Donington, where the rock concert and the racing place is. Andre Nash,
was there.
cheese and tater pie, got to have onion in it. Fucking Boston, he says. I don't know, it's some sort of black country language.
I will say one thing, right?
black
So
country.
I'm gonna ask all of you. So I've got to admit, I'm what do they call them? A lobby gobbler or a lather rather than a Wiganer. But
A lobby gobbler.
But here's something that.
Wasn't that Bill Clinton did in the Oval Office?
So I went to quite an expensive place in London. In fact, it was Rules, right? And they made a pie in the following way: they put the meat and stuff into a bowl, and then they put a pie crust over the top. That is a hot pot. It's not a pie. A pie
Yeah,
must
but rules have been around 400 years.
And a pie must have pastry on the sides and the bottom, shouldn't it?
Chris?
Well, see, I remember back in the school days in the 70s, they used to literally do a big tray, pastry underneath, and then cheese and potato on top.
Yeah.
And then so you actually got the pastry at the bottom.
Oh.
So it was a cheese and potato pie.
Hey, by the way, I was watching, what's it called? Cradle to Grave, this series about Danny Baker growing up in the 70s in East London. It's actually quite good. I don't think it's the funniest thing ever, but the people there, you can't imagine seeing them.
But I mean, when Chris was in Wolverhampton, of course, Slade was the big band back in the 70s. Everyone was walking around in flares and bright air. Did you ever know any of the guys from Slade?
Well, I went to Jimmy Lee lived about 200 yards up the road, and I used to deliver Daville's newspaper every day.
My dad was furious.
Nobby Holder was from Walsall, by the way, Karma in Walsall.
My dad expressed earlier his anger when he discovered that Cradle to Grave was about the 1970s, that my Uncle Tony had borrowed his white suit and it was never returned. My dad is still angry about that from 1975. But as my dad said, in those days, what you had to do, he said it wasn't a catalogue, but a bloke could come round and you'd buy your clothes, but you had to buy it on tick, and you had to give him a couple of quid every week or whatever it was.
Yeah, the ticker man.
Absolutely.
Tally man.
All right, Chris, thank you so much. Cindy in Michigan. Cindy, what is your food hack?
Howdy doody.
Okay, hi. Good evening, gentlemen.
By the way, sorry, before you start, Cindy, before you start, does anyone eat baked beans in America?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
But it's a different, it's like...
Oh, yes.
It's a posh
definitely.
food in them. It's like a cowboy posh cultural food.
Actually, it is. What they call certain food caviar, cowboy caviar dish.
Apparently, that's what Chuck's saying, because he lived in America. He says the sauce is different. Can you describe the baked bean sauce in America?
It's a little bit tangy. It's got a little bit of
so is
barbecue
ours.
sauce in it. Yes. So it's about, I would gather it's the same.
I've got to be honest with you. I've got to be honest with you. But isn't beans and spice a volatile mix?
Well, I like to add HP to my beans. It really brings out...
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. It depends on... Okay, if you're going to I would. Well, if you're doing beans with spice, you've got to do it separately than the sweet beans.
Cindy, would you eat the following, which is from Andrew, who says what he doesn't like Chris's pie. He says what he does is in a roasting dish, you put a layer of veg, then a layer of corned beef, then a layer of mash, and then grate cheese on top, and then bake.
Isn't that a Yorkshire type pudding or something?
That sounds good.
That's quite complex.
Well, you know what I would do? I would fry potatoes up. I would fry them up, and then fry up the corned beef, and then add some maybe some chili peppers in there.
Oh, it's Mexican.
Yes.
It's Mexican.
By the way,
I would turn it Mexican, yes.
Tom has texted in part boiled potato, sliced into about 1 centimetre slices, then layer into a glass bowl, potato grated cheese potato, then pour a small amount of milk over and finish with grated cheese in oven for 30 to 40 minutes on medium heat, and then take out when the top is golden. Have this with a bit of battered fish and a few
Forget
Gregg Wallace, we can do all that.
Here's what I would do.
Master chef
Here's
stuff.
my go-to. Here's been my go-to when I'm tired. I will take my favorite veg and I'll steam it. Like I'll take, let's take carrots and let's take broccoli, and I'll make an instant mac and cheese, and I'll throw the veg in there and mix it up.
Good idea,
along with albacore tuna, a can of albacore tuna.
Which is what?
Never heard of it.
Oh, it's the more expensive version of tuna. It's white meat tuna.
See, I tell you what,
we don't get that posh tuna.
My dad's grandmother, when he used to go round for Sunday lunch, she used to get a can of salmon, right, and put breadcrumbs in it so the juice of salmon became solid pieces. I think that was very much a wartime thing, though.
Oh, yeah, it gets the use out of all
it. Also with beans, you can do anything with beans, especially if they're pinto and black.
I've got to be honest with you.
Together.
I've got to be honest with you. I absolutely love navy beans, but I just don't like the sugar sauce they're sold in Britain. The baked beans, I don't like the sauce. It's awful.
You've got to try it Mexican style, Andre.
What, refried beans, which we used to call shit sauce.
No, not refried. Not refried, but you want to refry them yourself.
Okay.
So
why don't you just fry them once? What's so good about refrying them? I mean,
it's like triple cooked chips. Can I tell you? I went to a place in Runcorn. The triple cooked chips were undercooked. I said, you haven't even cooked them once, let alone triple.
You don't need the best chips are from a chippy, and they're not triple cooked. They shove them in, they come out amazing.
Here's the best thing about Mexican beans: the pinto and the black. When you refry them together and you add jalapenos, into the beans, you can then deep fry a corn tortilla or two. Deep fry it till that's hard on both sides, like a chip. Like one round chip, and then put the beans on top. Then you can add lettuce, you can add tomato, you can add cheese.
That's tomato.
You can add
that's what they call
green
tomato.
onions.
Translate.
Yeah, I know American.
You can add so many vegetables on top and eat it and crunch it.
But what about the greatest American food in my view? I went to this chain of restaurants. I forget what they're called, but it's an American chain. It's in a place called Cusley or something in Gloucestershire, and it's that Mexican brisket, Texas brisket, smoked.
Texas brisket.
Oh yeah,
that's good. That stuff.
That's good.
That's good.
You can also make that in a crock pot as well.
What's that mean?
You just got to get you don't know what a crock pot?
What's a crock pot? We don't have a lot of your American sophisticated inventions. Haven't come here yet. What's a crock pot?
A crock pot is a slow cooker.
Oh,
or just slow cooker.
It's what can cook things for hours, slow cooking for hours on end.
Do you not find?
The right temperature.
Hang on a second. I found this with my slow cooker, that basically everything came out tasting the same.
Yeah, but the trouble is as well, in America, your energy is 5 times cheaper. We can't put on a crock pot. We'll be bankrupt by morning.
Right. Yes, that is
We've
true.
got to have all our food raw. One of our staff here is now eating raw meat.
I'm up for raw meat, actually.
It doesn't doesn't take
not that
that
sort.
much electricity because you're cooking it at such a slower and lower density.
Beautiful.
So it's not and so the meat
just gets very soft.
Apart.
Yeah, it just falls apart.
Yeah, it'll fall
like a
apart.
cholent.
Like
when I was in the Scouts, I was introduced to corned beef hash, which my mum and dad had never made.
Well, that's now illegal in America. It's legal, isn't it?
What? Corned beef hash?
Corned beef hash.
Why?
They sell the corned beef in a tin all together, and if you fry it, it'll fall apart really nicely. Yes, it will. Yes, and you put potatoes with it.
Tatters.
And
potatoes.
Onions.
Would you eat haggis?
Taters.
Would you eat haggis? Do you know what haggis is?
Of course she doesn't.
Haggis is
a sheep's stomach stuffed with its gut.
A sheep's stomach stuffed with its lungs, liver, kidneys, and whatever, mixed with black pepper and some grains.
No, come on, you'd love a sheep's stomach with all its other bits.
I'm open to everything.
Do you remember that producer? Sorry, there was a producer here who wasn't very good. I agreed to eat haggis on there. I actually like haggis; it's fine.
Yeah.
And
I've heard it's awful.
It said boil it for 10 to 15 minutes. He microwaved it for 15 minutes. It was like initially it was like
Mount Etna, wasn't it? It was like lava.
It was like napalm with lumps of coal in it. I was like,
You still guzzled it down, didn't you?
No, I don't knock anything. If there's someone like yourself,
no. I'm sorry. No, forget. Don't knock it. It was a piece of minced lamb that had been it was cooked already. It was microwaved on full power for 15 minutes. It was like it's just black.
Do you remember the old McDonald's apple pies? They were like molten lava. I remember I was wearing shorts and a bit dripped on, and it formed a big blister over they do them now, but it's not as hot. It won't.
The apple pies.
Yeah, they were
remember those.
They were unbelievable, weren't they? Like really were like molten lava.
Would have been helpful if they put some apple in the apple pies, wouldn't it?
Oh, there was plenty of apple.
Like yourself said, you know what? Try it. I would. Let's say you made it for me for dinner.
Yeah, but we know about you. You used to be a camera girl. You try anything once.
Well, you know.
But what else is going on in America?
Before we go any further, I just want to defend Scotland, right? So here is what the Scots have said. They've said every single country in the world has a sausage made of offal. The thing is about Scotland, they're honest about the ingredients. That is true. Because let's be honest, these sausages you get in shops, that's not the prime cuts of pork, is it? No. Right? It's a hog's anus.
Eyelids, testicles, scrotum.
That's why they have a saying. They have a saying, don't give away the secrets of sausage.
The old saying, there's only two things in the world you don't want to see made, laws and sausages.
And on that bombshell, Cindy, we'll say have a nice day, and that's American for see ya, and we'll be back in a minute and a half.
goodness me. Somebody's coming with an expert level one. Would you make haggis in a sock? I think it would probably lose some of its juices. But how about this? Loads of people actually like corned beef. I didn't eat it as a kid, but we did have it on Scout Camp. Listen to this. Corned beef and potato pie. Layer this. Slice of onion, slice of corned beef, slice of potato, covered in a pint of beef oxo, baked in an oven, served with peas. I think it's pretty good. I've got to be honest with you. I think this idea of a potato pie is just, I think it's a bit of a winner.
I bet there's people all over the country now getting their ovens ready, because it makes you, when you talk about a food, it does make you think about it.
Do you know what I make? Do you know what one of my favourite foods is? Right, if you go into a Chinese shop, you can get black bean and crispy chili in like a jar. Right, I like making those instant noodles, but then put the black bean. So I do put the chicken on it. You know, the chicken powder.
It's a little hack. It's like what Cindy was saying. She gets macaroni and adds carrots and.
So what you can do? I'll tell you what you can do if you want to. You can get things like you can get powdered ginger, powdered garlic. Powdered garlic. Lots of people don't use in the UK, but if you start off with your water, hot water, you put in your little sachet that you get with the instant noodles, a little bit of instant garlic, a little bit of powdered garlic, a little bit of powdered ginger, right? A little bit of soy sauce, turn it into basically a simple Chinese soup, throw your noodles in and eat it as a soup. You can eat it dry or...
If you had vegetables, you might stir fry. So this is brilliant, what the information we're giving you.
My dad, for many years, used to like having a proper Chinese stir fry with all the good ingredients over instant noodles. Instant noodles are great, they're gorgeous.
I remember super noodles when they came out. It was a massive hit.
I remember my granddad saying to me, Andre, do you eat lots of exotic foreign food like a pot noodle? No, pot noodle is not exotic.
I remember when I had my first pot noodle, I was about 10 years old. It was given to me by a guy who's now a professor. So
well, why is that?
I just thought, because you wouldn't expect a professor to go, look at this pot noodle, look at it, you know. So incredible.
I love instant noodles. I'll tell you what, there's a place.
I mean, he wasn't when he was 10 years old.
There's a place in Chinatown, which I think is called the Hong Kong, where they used to have. It's not instant noodles when it comes, but they put it on, and then they put this seafood dinner on top of it. And what happens is some of the noodles soften and some don't.
Yeah, well, al dente, isn't it? Like the Italian
So you get some soft, some
crispy
crunchy,
noodles,
served with garlic sauce. Oh, chili sauce, rather. Robert is in Hertfordshire. Oh, by the way, this gives me a good opportunity. The London kebab shop on Tooley Street, they wanted to get mentioned on Talk. So now I've mentioned them, I can show them this video, and that will keep them happy. He said I've got to bring Piers Morgan down one day. I think that's unlikely. I think that's unlikely. But I have to say, I go for the chicken kebab at the London Kebab House on Tooley Street. Said it twice now. Okay, Robert is in Hertfordshire. Rob, you're on Talk.
Good evening, chaps. I was going to talk political, but we're talking about food now. And
we can do both. We can mix them both. And do you remember when they were going to tax pasties? I mean, there you go. Politics and
I've
food.
got to tell you the disappointment of me fruit trees today. But before that, talking about potato pie.
No, hang on a second. Tell us about the fruit tree first.
Okay, when I bought this bungalow, I got 5 fruit trees.
Wow, what type?
An orchard.
Well, that's what they are. I googled them on LeafSnap, and they are plum cherries.
Nice.
What's that, like a cross between a plum and a...
They really are nice, yeah? Well, the only thing is, they drop on the floor, and then you get... It's like the Battle of Britain with the wasps, because my son drives in the car, squashes them on the drive, and actually... we've been here 3 years, but my fruit trees are biannual, because they only come every 2 years. But so what I did was, in this blazing heat today, I'm 73, my wife's holding the steps, I've picked them all, put them on the wall, and I said, please take, and they was really nice. But people, I thought they'd all go, and I even had the paper bags as well for them to take away. But I've got so many left over, and I'm not a cook, but I'm thinking of making a jam. Any tips?
Well, what is a plum cherry? I never heard of. Is it like a cross between a plum?
Google it.
Well, I don't like doing homework. Can't you just tell us?
But can't you just, with any fruit, my understanding, I might be wrong on this, with any fruit, can't you just get some water, put it in, boil it, and then basically, after you've boiled it for a certain amount of time, stick it in a bowl and put some pastry over the top, bake it, and it becomes a pie? I think that's true.
No, of course you can't, because you're going to choke someone to death, aren't you? They've got stones in them.
Well, you've got to take the stones out, fool. Right.
Well, yeah, you got to, and that's quite laborious.
Hang on, you could sieve... Oh, no, I suppose you couldn't.
You could mash them up and then... If you've got any tips about a deep
I bet what you could get is, I bet you could get a very large sieve with very large gauze, where it would keep the stones, but it wouldn't...
There must be a solution.
But I'll tell you what I did with my mum and dad's house, where I'm staying at the moment when I'm up north. I bought them some wild strawberries and some blackberry seeds, and they just sat around for years and years and years. I'm not being critical of my mum and dad. It was just because they built the house themselves and they had so many things to do. I mean, the garden's half an acre. My mum was there with a trowel. I thought, well, that'll take her for the next 50 years if she had that long. But I just threw them out amongst the bushes, and wild strawberries...
What, your parents?
No, the seeds. Wild strawberries are absolutely awful because they've got no taste to them, but the blackberries are superb.
Have you noticed how strawberries from shops have now become a lot better? I don't know why you can't make them all sweet, because with all this genetic stuff and DNA, they should be all...
Yeah, the wild strawberries were rubbish, but blackberries are great. You should just get a packet of seeds of blackberries, because then in the summer you have, and each plant makes about 15 kilograms.
But now you can go out in the country and find them, can't you? Go foraging.
Yeah, but they take over. They go 5 gardens along. You know, that's the trouble. Same as gooseberries. I mean, I've not had gooseberries for years, but they're lovely gooseberries. But they just take over the garden.
Well, mint is dreadful as well. Mint, if you introduce mint, it goes everywhere.
Yep.
Oh, and I've heard also, artichokes? If you grow artichokes, no, forget about ever getting them out. Anyway, on that bombshell, we'll be back with more food tips and hacks and other stuff.
We'll keep Robert on, by the way.
We'll keep Bob on because he's got something to say about potato pie. Back in a minute and a half.
People are just obsessed with corned beef and pies. Listen to this one. This is from Sam. He says, Clayton Park Pies in Lancashire make a butter pie, which is potatoes, butter and black pepper, and they are so tasty. Yum. Robert was telling us about his fruit trees. We don't know how to make jam, but
he had a potato pie.
But you also had a potato pie tail, didn't you?
Yeah. But before that, on the subject of corned beef, I've not had a tin of corned beef since the Falklands War. That's
out of protest. Do you think the Malvinas should go to Argentina and you refuse to eat corned beef until it is returned?
Yes.
Right.
Basically.
Okay, so I want to.
Okay, so.
But hang on a second. I haven't eaten spam. Have you had spam?
What, because of the Falklands
No,
War?
I haven't had spam since about 1988, and I'm not that old.
Do you know what spam stands for?
Oh no, I used to like them spam Brits. They were nice.
I can't remember. It was something like. If you know what spam stands for, give
sausage, pork.
No, it was something like mechanically something meat. It's anyway. Anything else to say?
Meat? What's that? That was another one, wasn't it? Luncheon meat.
Spiced ham, apparently. It's an American dish.
Going back to my family's pie, we originate from the Amalfi Coast, and there's a peasant dish there called torta. I think it's spelled
pheasant dish.
Torta. It's a potato pie, what the peasants used to make with leftover potatoes. It's got chopped up bacon, garlic. Oh, it's beautiful. And the garlic and onion, and they bake it with a thick crust.
No, I'm sorry, Robert. You've got to start us from the beginning. How do you make it? Go on.
Right. Okay. I'm not sure how you make it. I can only eat it, but I can tell you the ingredients.
He knows how to eat it.
Yes, it's a leftover potatoes mashed up. Then you've got, being Italian, plenty of garlic, plenty of chopped up onions. You can put carrots in it and everything. Now you bake it with a very thick pastry, and then when it's baked, what I used to do is let it go cold, and the men used to take it to work for lunch. Now I
like a Cornish pasty type thing, yeah.
It's called torta, Torta.
You know, Cornish pasties, you meant that the crust was just a handle. They used to throw that bit away, but I quite like that bit.
Yes.
Right, torta. Torta.
Have you ever had Sacha torta? The best, finest.
Torta. It's beautiful.
Oh, it's a Mexican.
Tortellini, yeah, like
Oh, we're getting confused because there's a Mexican torta.
There's a Mexican. Anyway, Bob, thanks for your call. Let's go to Ken in Anglesey. That was good food data. Ken.
Hi. Good morning,
Sorry,
Andre.
Kev. Bore da.
Bore da, Andre. Bore da.
Bore da.
Ashley. Yeah, I was going to say about breakfast. You guys, heard about people drinking tomato juice in pubs?
Yeah, I don't like that.
Have you heard of chopped tomatoes? Do you have it with
the
breakfast?
Bloody Mary?
Yeah, if you have chopped tomatoes, put some Worcester sauce on it.
It's a Bloody Mary.
Heat it up in a saucepan. If you like chopped tomatoes for your breakfast and you like a bit of Worcester sauce in it, job done.
Nice.
And if you have it on toast with bacon on it, job done.
Kev, I used to share a flat with a friend of mine who's now a very, very senior lawyer, and he devised a dish which we nicknamed Filth. Right, now I will tell you how to make filth. Filth was, he used to get pasta and he used to boil it until it was still crunchy, dried pasta. He used to put it on a plate, big mound. Then he used to get a can of, the baked beans with the small sausages in them. Put it in.
Yeah.
A quarter of a bottle of Worcester sauce, and he used to put it on top. That was Filth 1. Then he came up with this new dish called Filth 2. Filth 2 was a mound of rice, probably about 1.5 inches deep in the middle. Then he used to get 4 Scotch bonnet chilies, which he used to fry. Then he used to get a can of stag chili from the corner shop. Then he used to put a quarter of a bottle of Worcester sauce in. And I will tell you, I lived on the 3rd floor of the house we shared together. And I will tell you, I used to get a text message from a friend of mine who's probably going to be the Lord Chancellor under Nigel Farage's government, and he sent me a text going, Andy's cooking filth, let's get out. And you could taste it in the back of your throat as you ran out the house. It was disgusting.
By the way, Simon has texted in, I kind of remember a spam shortage during the Falklands War because we got our spam from Argentina.
No, it must be corned beef from Argentina, mustn't it?
It's a lot of bit. Well, oh yeah, that's a good point. But I mean, Rob did it for political reasons. Let's get on Yasmin the Witch. Look in the eyes, not between the eyes, into the eyes.
Hiya, darlings.
All right, are you sky-clad?
No, not tonight, no.
Okay.
I'm cooking cleftico at the moment.
Oh, lovely.
What's cleftico?
Oh,
is that because of us talking about food?
It's Greek. It's mutton shoulder cooked in a clay oven for 12 hours.
Ooh.
With tomatoes and feta cheese.
Nice.
But when did you start it?
Well,
do you use 12 hours?
Do you use lamb or mutton, though?
I use lamb.
So it would only take about 3 or 4 hours with lamb.
When did you put it in the oven, Yasmin?
9 o'clock.
So it's going to be ready?
It's nearly ready. Yeah.
Are you going to get it out? We've got a couple of minutes.
So the way to replicate a clay oven, I don't know how you do it, is to take a shoulder or a half shoulder normally. Then what you do is you put it in, you put some black peppers, you put a little bit of olive oil, you put it into tin foil, and then you bake it in a tray with some water in it. But you make sure that the meat is quite tightly wrapped. Is that how you make it?
What I do is wrap it in parchment paper.
Oh, interesting.
And then, what's wet, wrap it in the paper. What I put is celery, artichokes, peppers, onions, tomatoes, and I put loads and loads of garlic, bay leaves, olive oil, lemons.
Nice.
Are you vegetarian?
No, I'm a heck. I love eating meat. Especially sausage.
So hang on a second. So you're serving your Clefticode about 1 or 2 in the morning, aren't you?
What I do...
Well, she's a witch, isn't she? That's the witching hour.
Roman is always cooking at night time. They never cook in the day, real Roman.
Roman is?
Yeah.
But are you I thought were you Romany, are you?
Yeah, family's Romany, yeah.
All right, interesting.
So why do you never cook during the day?
Well, they don't
she's
cook
a Romany.
during the day because when they're travelling, they get moved on and things like that. So they always cook at night. It's to stop the evil eye. And the other thing they do at night is they do
don't
all
say
the
that.
windows. They wash all the windows at night and do all the cleaning at night.
Why?
Because it's just the best way.
Is it true? Is it true?
You can't see through the window.
Is it true that Roma people like washing with bleach, and you can always tell you go in a Roma house because it smells of bleach?
Well, it's a good substance, bleach.
Well, bleach, it's to do with people always saying gypsies are dirty. So therefore, what to do is to make everything pristine.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
And that's what it's.
So I have to say, your Clefticode sounds absolutely fantastic. But if you can make it with mutton, it's even better. Simply because if you slow cook it for a long time, the mutton